of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, KJ Boyle, research assistant with the Revolving Door Project, comparing Trump and Biden's labor records. Also on the program today, Prem Thakker, politics reporter at the Intercept, on what Columbia University is doing about the assault perpetrated on students who were protesting Israel's attack on Gaza. Then we'll be talking to David Bedar, history teacher and member of the Newton Teachers Association. He's on strike. I think he'll be calling us in from the picket line in Newton, Mass. Also on the program today, Trump wins in New Hampshire, making it all but formal that he will be the 2024 Republican nominee. Meanwhile, Biden wins as a write-in candidate in New Hampshire's Democratic, really non-primary. A month-long truce is at the center of Egyptian, Qatari, and U.S.-led talks. Meanwhile, UN Human Rights Office says Israel's treatment and detention of Gazans appears to amount to torture. The U.S. launches airstrikes in Iraq and Yemen as U.S. pleads with the Chinese to intervene with the Houthis. Senate Republicans balking at Palestinian aid in the supplemental package as the immigrant deal fractures the Republicans as well. LA Times to slash their newsroom employees. Boeing's Delta flight loses a wheel on takeoff as the Alaska Air CEO says MAX 9 planes are full of loose bolts.
I'm flying on a Boeing Delta flight over the weekend, so pray for me, folks.
Turkey backs Sweden's NATO inclusion. Russia accuses Ukraine of downing a plane with 65 Ukrainian prisoners. Meanwhile, reports of Ukrainian fighters running out of ammo. And abortion travel bans now proposed in Tennessee and Oklahoma. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am contractually obligated to allow Emma Vigeland to say her catchphrase on every Wednesday.
Hump Day.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed Hump Day. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, New Hampshire primary results last night. I don't know how much you can read into these in one way or another, because for the Democrats, it was just it wasn't even a primary. No delegates will be awarded from there. So it freed up a lot of people to sign up to run in the Republican Party. More relevantly, it allowed for independents, some of whom might vote in a Democratic primary, to vote in the Republican primary. Trump got, even with that caveat, Trump, I think, received more votes in the Republican primary last night than any other winner of the Republican primary in the past. Now, it's also really rare. I don't ever remember any New Hampshire primary having only two candidates declared.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any recollection of that? So,
it's not never. I mean, because we're looking back at these figures here. First of all, this was the biggest gap in independents and Republicans between those two candidates that we've seen over the past election cycles.
Gap in who they chose.
Yes. Trump won Republicans by 49 points. Nikki Haley won independents by 22 points. And it was high turnout, around, I think, 300,000 people turned out. Very
high turnout for the Republicans. But
that split between independents and Republican voters is by far the highest we've seen in a long period of time.
But it's hard to assess that because you don't know how many of those independent voters would normally have voted in a Democratic primary.
Exactly. Because if you're going to the polls, you're a New Hampshire person that cares about voting, and you're an unaffiliated voter, right? There's two ballots you can pick. You can pick a Republican one or a Democratic one. And the Democratic one was not going to make a difference. It was symbolic. So you're going to pick the Republican one, right? And if you hate Trump, you'll vote Nikki Haley. She was set up with, and by the way, Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, was campaigning for her this whole time. Like, not a religious state, college-educated state. This was the perfect opportunity for her to actually win a state. And this means she won't win any. I don't think she'll win any states.
She won't win any states. The real question, though, is how long she'll stay in the race. Here is Donald Trump. Oh, I should say, well, here is Nikki Haley in her concession speech.
She's spinning it.
And she's spinning. I mean, the real question is
just a flesh wound speech.
How long is she going to stay in the race?
Monty Python.
Because this is the thing to think about here. She probably is one of the few also-rans, as it were, in this Republican primary who is not anticipating a job in the Trump administration. She must realize that he's not going to pick her for vice president. And certainly she's had a run in the administration. And then the question becomes, well, how much tolerance? What's the agenda of her backers? If she cannot win in this election, she seems to be able to maybe hurt Donald Trump in the general just by existing. Because here she was last night. But listen, do we have that last line where we hear her audience members? Yeah, this is going to make it. This is the part that is interesting to me.
And the question is, who's going to fix it? With Donald Trump, Republicans have lost almost every competitive election. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We lost the White House. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. And we lost in 2022. The worst kept secret in politics is how badly the Democrats want to run against Donald Trump. They know Trump is the only Republican in the country who Joe Biden can defeat.
Okay. And
that's true.
The idea that you have Republican, I mean, I have every reason to believe that most of the people in that room are Republicans, right? They're obviously anti-Trump Republicans. But just that you have someone around there who is in the Republican Party who is forcing some Republicans to yell that Trump is a loser, I think that to the extent that anything can hurt Donald Trump, I think that's the type of thing that hurts Donald Trump. And then the only other thing that can hurt Donald Trump is Donald Trump. And this speech from Donald Trump that came very shortly after that, very different from the Iowa speech. And, you know,
Tim Scott's doing his best Chris Christie.
Without a doubt. And this speech was weird for a couple of reasons. One, Trump brought up Vivek like within minutes of this speech to do He said, time it.
He's giving us a lot of money.
You get only 1 minute.
To introduce him to rap or something like that? He's waiting in the wings.
He brought him up to like just kiss Trump's ring. And I think it was like his way. My guess is that the sale was like, Vivek speaks to the kids. And also, he's not white.
He's a great salesman.
Yeah.
And so you want him on national television because this is the sort of the launch of the general campaign.
Well, they're hoping that's the case.
Well, that's the theory, anyways. They operate under that theory.
Let's leave with the guy who only went down in the polls.
We'll bring Vivek out there, and but he's only got a minute. And this is and Vivek is doing this because he wants to run for something, I think, in Ohio. And he wants Trump to come and campaign for him. And so this is what's going on here. But listen to Trump. This is not what his campaign would have wanted him to do as like the opening salvo of his general campaign. Because this is the type of thing that turns off those sort of like semi-low information, like semi-involved voter who doesn't feel comfortable with how rude Trump is. Go ahead.
And we won by 21 points, and it was great. And today, I have to tell you, it was very interesting because I said, wow, what a great victory. But then somebody ran up to the stage all dressed up nicely when it was at 7. But now I just walked up and it's at 14. But she ran up when it was 7. And, we have to do what's good for our party. And she was up and I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. And, last week we had a little bit of a problem. And if you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in third? Yeah, she came in third. And then I looked at the polls. She was talking about most winnability, who's going to win, and I had one put up. I don't know if you see it, but I have one put up. We've won almost every single poll in the last 3 months against crooked Joe Biden, almost every poll. And she doesn't win those polls. And she doesn't win those. This is not your typical victory speech, but let's not have somebody take a victory when she had a very bad night. She had a very bad night. And you have the now very unpopular governor of this state. This guy, he's got to be on something. I've never seen anybody with energy.
Taking drugs.
He's like hopscotch. And
what?
I'm
he's
watching this
implying
guy
that he's on like taking
what
coke.
What does hopscotch mean?
He's hopped up. He's hopped up.
Hopscotch.
Yeah,
he's hopped up on drugs.
Everyone knows that.
Never thought I'd hear Trump say
Studio
the word.
54, you're playing hopscotch.
Yeah.
Hopscotch. And
as I sniff. I mean, hey, no shame, but
this is the beginning of the speech, and this is the type
Fight
of
them
thing
on the beaches.
that the Biden campaign is praying for and needs, because they're hoping that Trump, agitated, is going to remind people, in part, why they didn't want Trump before. And you have to remember, just statistically speaking, more of Trump's voters have passed away, honestly.
from COVID.
Well,
old age.
COVID and old age, just statistically speaking, than theoretically Biden ones. And so this is what the Biden campaign wants. Whether they're right or not, I'll be able to tell you in 11 months, but 10 months, I guess. But as to whether Nikki Haley stays in the race, it really is just a question of what is the agenda of the donors.
Yes.
Do they want to, are there Republican donors who think, if this hurts Donald Trump in the general election to keep Nikki Haley in until Super Tuesday, maybe they'll fund her to do it? Because if she thinks that she's not going to get anywhere anyways until 2028, this might be in her best interest.
I think so. And it's a really unique situation this year because for some reason, Iowa and New Hampshire are way ahead of South Carolina. Because I remember
Nevada has its caucus, but Nikki Haley's not participating in it.
Right. So it's just I think it's kind of a different year in that way, right? I mean, like the gap between, I don't remember the gap being this large between Iowa and South Carolina. I could be wrong about that. Or New Hampshire and South Carolina for that matter. But that's, I think, the shelf life for her. If she's going to lose by 20 plus points, I think, in her home state. And then when you get to Super Tuesday, a short time after that, the Republican primary process is set up, and it's increasingly so that it gets wrapped up quickly. California, for the first time this year, is a winner-take-all state. That's 169 delegates because the Republican, like MAGA Trump people made it that way. They wanted Trump to be able to wrap it up quickly. So, I mean,
the Republican primary, I should say, also has always been much more geared towards a winner-take-all thing than a split delegation. In other words, if you get 40% within the primary, you get 40% of the delegates. It's not like that in the Republican primary. There's a couple in the Democratic, but the vast majority of the Republican primary process is winner-take-all.
Right,
So,
and even more so this year, point being. So, like, her window is just a few weeks, and then we're starting to wrap up the Nikki Haley experience.
we will go through a lot of the exit polling, but again, such a weird year in terms of who made up the electorate. Very hard to sort of like make any assessments of this whatsoever, as far as I can tell.
Except one thing, that Republican pollsters are looking at how well she did with independents and how poorly Trump did, and they're freaking out a little bit about the general election.
And again, it's hard to know like how many of those, but they may have more granular details than we do on those exit polling. We should also say Biden won, but his name had to be written in. He was not participating in this primary because it was not an official. There will be no delegates awarded, but he still won in a big fashion relative to the other write-ins. The only thing that I'm interested in the New Hampshire one is that there's something like 20,000, maybe 13,000 write-ins that have not been counted, 7,000 that just seem to be sort of other. Now, I've seen accountings of the write-ins like with candidates who have had 29 write-ins. So it's possible, I don't know what the New Hampshire rules are, but it's possible that ceasefire is in a lot of those 7,000 ballots, but they don't count it because it's not a person, maybe? I don't know, but we'll keep our eyes open for that.
I hope a reporter gets their hands on how many ceasefire write-ins there were.
That would be interesting to hear from. In a moment, we're going to be talking to KJ Boyle. We got a lot of people today that we're speaking to. But first, a couple of words from our sponsor. This time of year, we're at the beginning of the year. People are trying to revamp their eating habits. If you have resolved to sit down and eat dinner with your family around the table, what do you do those nights when your schedule is packed? In other words, like, what do I do every night? Race back, gotta deal with salt. Well, I'll tell you what I do. I turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals, including ones that take only 15 minutes. It is designed to minimize mealtime stress, and it works quite well for me. I will tell you that right now. I occasionally will make, like longer taking meals, but they've got a green salsa beef taco. It's like a taco night type of situation. 15 minutes to make. Healthy, delicious. I did some garden wraps. Sometimes Saul and I like to have sandwiches for dinner. And also my other favorite recently was a one-pot chicken sausage and the one they make hummus out of.
Oh, chickpeas?
Chickpeas. It was like a soup essentially, but a thick soup. And I think that took closer like 25 minutes, but if it's cooking, I don't have to deal with it.
Right.
It doesn't, it's cooking time anyways. But look, go to HelloFresh.com/majority free, use the code majority free, and you will get free breakfast for life. In other words, one breakfast item per box while your subscription is active, because they get a bunch of other stuff too. They don't just have dinners; they have other meals, and they also have like a marketplace where you can buy other stuff. Each HelloFresh box is packed with farm fresh ingredients. Everything arrives pre-proportioned right to your doorstep for less hassle, less wasted food, less expensive than ordering in. Sometimes less expensive than even shopping yourself, because particularly in New York City, where it's a little bit pricey, but also you do not waste any food, which is what I love. Go to HelloFresh.com/majority-free. Use the code majority-free for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/majority-free with code majority-free. Also, our other sponsor for today, back coming out of the COVID stuff, I basically let my beard grow. Said I don't want to promote like the subscription service razor that we had. We were looking around for a new razor. I found it. I shave it here and I shave it here. This is, of course, the Henson Shaver. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer, made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and now they are bringing the precision engineering to your face. Well, I guess theoretically also could be your legs or your underarms or wherever you shave. Here's the bottom line. Razor blades are like diving boards, and the more distance there is between the shaver and the razor blade, the more it wobbles, the more it will cut you, the more it will scrape you and give you nicks. So a bad shave is not a blade problem. It turns out it is a razor blade distance problem. Henson Shaving uses computer numerical grade machines, and they make metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, less than the thickness of a human hair, from the razor. And so you get a vibration-free shave. It's a great shave. It's the best shave I've ever had. And they also, made these convenient like little channels here for the, to get rid of the shaving cream, so you don't have to bang it on the thing. And here's the point, and you can only say this about a Canadian company. Henson Shaving wants to be the best razor, not necessarily the best razor business. So the point is, there's no subscriptions, no obsolescence, no proprietary anything. You buy this razor once. It's a beautiful razor. It will last you the rest of your life. And then after that, it takes about $3 to $5 per year in blades, because it uses the standard dual edged blades. Gives you that old school feeling with new school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, $3 to $5 a year, except for right now, they will give you a year's worth of blades free. So it's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that's going to last you a lifetime. They have other models too. And I have a black one as well.
Yeah, they're really great.
They're beautiful.
I can't believe how much money you save just by having that kind of
It's
thing.
true, and it's a better razor.
Yeah.
HensonShaving.com/majority. Pick the razor for you. Use the code majority. You'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. You got to move them into your cart, and then you get them for free. That's 100 free blades when you go to Henson, HENSON, shaving, SHAVING.com/majority. Use the code majority. We will put a link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions for both our sponsors today. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to KJ Boyle, research assistant with the Revolving Door Project. We are back. Sam Seder On the Majority Report, I want to welcome to the program KJ Boyle, research assistant with the Revolving Door Project. It's just come out with a piece yesterday. Donald Trump is no friend to the working class. It's no contest. Biden administration labor policies have been dramatically better for ordinary Americans than those of his predecessor. KJ, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this. I mean, there's interesting sort of labor news that has come out in the past couple of days. Sean Fain calling for a 2028 general strike. Over the past year, public sector unionization rates have basically been stable, but private sector unionization rates have gone up, not dramatically, but they're going up, which is a relatively new phenomena we have seen really in the past, 30 or 40 years. There's a great piece out today, I think, in Bloomberg News, I think it was, had written a piece about Sean Fain with a moment where he was in the White House with Joe Biden. And Biden thought that Fain was going to come in and be very complimentary and this and that. And Fain basically said, like, you're not doing enough. And apparently Biden was a little put off and this and that. But we still saw Biden come out and essentially walk the picket line to the extent that he can with Sean Fain. Aside from that dynamic, which is important, we can go back to that. But let's look at sort of like the material difference it is when you have a Democratic administration, and I would say particularly this one, certainly better than the Obama administration, without a doubt, versus a Republican administration. And I feel like Donald Trump was relatively like typical for a Republican administration in terms of like their labor. But where do you start in terms of making that assessment?
Yeah, I think the easiest place to start probably is just looking at who they appoint to head the top executive branch agencies, departments that deal with labor policy. So that would be the Department of Labor and the National Labor Relations Board. And the difference is really pretty clear when you look at Trump's appointees and other Republican appointees. They're pretty much always either a CEO of a company, which we saw Trump's first appointee to the Department of Labor was the CEO of a restaurant conglomerate firm that owns Hardee's and Carl's Jr. And same thing at the NLRB. It's either a CEO or a attorney that used to represent anti-union, anti-labor firms. So the type of people that Republicans put into these administrations are vastly different from, the pro-union, pro-labor people that we see under the Biden administration.
All right, well, let's go to the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel. There is a National Labor Relations Board, and that now has a majority of board members have been picked by Biden, but the General Counsel acts like has a sort of like a unique role relative to, it's like doesn't have the sort of the status of an agency department head, but has a more functional, feels like it has a more functional role than these agency department heads. What does the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel do generally?
Yeah, so the general counsel is kind of like sort of like a gatekeeper for what the board is going to, the types of cases that the board is going to pursue and what cases come before the board. So they, determine what cases the board will review. They kind of can give directives to the regional directors about what cases they should try to pursue as well. And we saw that recently with Jennifer Abruzzo, the current general counsel. When she came into the role, she outlined the types of cases that she wanted her underlings to pursue, and that ended up, it can end up bringing cases that overturn bad precedent, like I mentioned in the piece of the Cemex ruling that brought us back to a similar dynamic of Joyce Silk and Karchek.
Does the general counsel also do they set rules, or do they basically just pick cases with the idea of like organizing the other board members to pursue these rules? Is it the latter?
Yeah. They sort of can decide which cases come before the board, and that ends up those rulings that the board ends up deciding will have established precedent that then impacts.
Okay, let's talk about Peter Robb. He was the guy that Trump tapped to be the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel. He was a management side labor attorney. So he was explicitly like his vision of national labor relations or labor power was to depower them. I don't know what the word would be there. Disempower them. He worked for Proskauer Rose. He led the Reagan administration's Patco firings, essentially. Is that right?
Yeah. So he has two claims to fame as a union buster. He was an attorney for Proskauer Rose, as you said, which is one of a handful of firms that corporations will go to when they get word that their employees are trying to unionize, and those firms will advise them and represent them in court to ensure that their employees can't unionize. And then, in the 80s, he was the lead attorney for the Reagan administration when they fired over 11,000 air traffic controllers, which really, decimated the union movement and, unions across the country.
Sean Fain gave a speech, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and specifically cited that moment as now we are paying for the sins of that moment by not, reacting as a labor movement around the country to that firing, because it just sort of like tumbled from there. And then Abruzzo, talk a little bit. You mentioned the Cemex ruling, that it was a sort of an attempt to return to a version of the Joy-Silk doctrine from 1949 to 69. That was the sort of like heyday of the labor movement in many respects. What is that doctrine, and what did Abruzzo do? And there seems to me that there's one more step that Abruzzo needs to take, but go ahead.
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar, the Joy-Silk doctrine is basically, it allows for card check unionization. So if a majority of workers in a company, in a bargaining union, sign union cards, the company has to recognize that union and bargain with them. And that's how it was, as you said, until 1969. And then that was overturned in the Giselle ruling, which basically allowed employers to, without any reason to say they don't recognize the union, demand a formal election before the NLRB. And then in that time, companies use that waiting period to try to convince workers, maybe threaten workers with firing or, any other unfair labor practice for joining a union. So that was the status quo until, I believe, this past summer with the Cemex ruling, which found that it didn't reinstitute card check, unfortunately, but if a company engages in any unfair labor practices, i.e., threatening to fire workers for joining the union, that will result in immediate recognition of the union, and the company will have to immediately start bargaining.
And just to be clear, it also, my understanding is that if there is a 50% card fill out, the company has only 2 weeks to file why there was a flaw in that, and in the choosing of the unit or whatever it is, and that also can be adjudicated as to be not legit. Like that in and of itself, unless they have a good reason, that in and of itself can be one of those unfair labor practices that triggers the unionization. So the unionization part has become significantly easier. within the limitations of the National Labor Relations Board ability to sort of like absorb these cases as they come in. But the next step seems to me to be, how do you get to a contract? Because we've seen it with Starbucks. We've seen it with Amazon. You can get a union, but then a year or two later, if they haven't even bothered, there's no way to enforce an actual contract. That seems to be the next step over at the National Labor Relations Board, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a big issue, and the board, does have some power to ensure that people are bargaining in good faith, and as you mentioned, that good faith standard is a function, or was a function under Joy Silk as well, that they couldn't challenge the union without a good faith doubt that it was legitimate. But yeah, hopefully that is something that we would like to see the administration pursue further to ensure that unions, once they do actually get that vote, that corporations have to bargain in good faith as well.
All right. So the next sort of like a tranche, as it were, of appointees is the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor does stuff like they come out with a ruling this year, I think it was, that basically included millions more people into overtime rules, and also has come out with rulings as to essentially what amounts to wage theft, or misclassification of workers. Instead of them being contractors, they're actually employees. That means that they're eligible for Social Security and other benefits. Who did Trump appointed like 4 different people, didn't he?
Yeah, he had 3 appointees. The first one, Anthony Pudzer, who I mentioned in the beginning, he did not make it. He used to be a CEO of the company that owns Hardee's and Carl's Jr. His nomination failed because, for a series of scandals, he had employed an undocumented housekeeper. He had numerous domestic violence accusations. That company outsourced jobs to the Philippines. So, not a great pick, not really in line with Trump's campaign promises. And after that fell through, he nominated Alexander Acosta, who served for a few years. He's
the one who made the very lenient plea on the Epstein deal.
Yep.
Yes, infamous for that plea deal.
And then it was Eugene Scalia, Antonin Scalia's son.
Yes, Antonin Scalia's son, former big law attorney who repped, as a litany of horrible corporations, including Boeing, Walmart, SeaWorld, when their whale trainers were killed by the whales because they didn't have proper protections. He protected SeaWorld against those accusations.
Scalia, another one who basically was in on all of these sort of like labor and health and safety fights, arguing to weaken them or to skirt around them, essentially. Marty Walsh was the first Secretary of Labor, and he had been a union president of a local construction union in Boston, and then went on to be mayor of Boston. But tell us a little bit about Julie Su, who is the acting labor secretary, and she's only going to be the acting labor secretary, but she's going to be in there forever. It feels like now. Yeah,
I believe the administration has put her up for nomination again, but yeah, it seems unlikely that will go through, so she can remain as acting, basically indefinitely. So Sue has been a much better labor secretary, in my opinion, compared to Walsh. I think
agreed.
There were a lot of critiques of Walsh. The DOL under his leadership was really like slow rolling, getting these rules out, and that regulatory process takes a long time as it is. The DOL has to propose a rule, then issue a notice of a rule, propose the rule, receive comments before finally issuing that. And under Walsh, it took a while for those rules to even give notice of those rules. So under Julie Su, who was the labor commissioner and labor secretary in California, and also represented Thai garment workers in Los Angeles when they were trafficked and working in horrible slave conditions. Under her leadership, they've been much more aggressive in pushing these rules out and making sure they get out in a timely fashion so that they can be in effect quicker.
All right. Well, appreciate this breakdown. KJ Boyle will put a link to it at majority.fm. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay,
folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Prem Thakker, politics reporter at The Intercept, about the silencing and censoring and violence on a college campus that you haven't really heard that much about.
But there won't be congressional hearings about it.
Exactly. And then we'll be talking to David Bedar, history teacher and member of the Newton Teachers Association, from the picket line as there is a teacher strike in Newton, Mass. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. On the Majority Report, want to welcome to the program Prem Thakker, politics reporter at The Intercept. Prem, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I've been a big fan, so it's a treat to be here.
Well, we appreciate your work.
Yeah.
So, all right, fill us in on what happened. I mean, Columbia is an interesting university for this to be happening. I mean, because there has been a very long, certainly predating October 7th, long history of protesting there on both sides. In fact, what's her face? The IDW.
Barry Weiss.
Yeah, Barry Weiss. Before she complained about how college kids were silencing people on campus, she was a Columbia University student trying to get professors who spoke in any way of Palestinians being human beings or deserving rights. She tried to get them fired.
Yes.
Just to give a little backdrop there. But tell us about this most recent incident or what's been happening at Columbia since October 7th.
Yeah, so to your point, of course, Columbia as a campus is no stranger to student activism, dating back for decades, back to 1968 and so on. With regards to Israel-Palestine, I mean, there have been numerous referendums on campus with regards to divestment. In 2018 and 2020, both Columbia College and Barnard College had referendums. Both passed with about 64-ish% of students saying that they favor the university divesting from companies that might be implicated in Israel's occupation. And so this protest on Friday was just a continuation of an ongoing movement that generations of students have kind of been about. So this protest on Friday was also geared towards divestment. It was also encouraging students to consider striking their tuition, to push the university to more seriously consider divestment. And this, like many other protests, came in response to universities either not being more transparent about their investments or refusing to meet with students or just dismissing previous votes from student bodies. So that was the context of this protest. There were faculty members there that were talking about, different university faculty members in Gaza that have been killed by Israeli forces. So that was the context of all of this. There were student groups from all sorts of places. There's now a coalition of 90-something student groups because last semester Columbia suspended the Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace student groups because of an unauthorized event that what the university is that's what they called it. So now these can
I stop you there? Was there a precedent for this unauthorized event thing? Like, I find it really hard to believe that every group in the history of Columbia University who have had protests had their protest authorized. It's just, you hear like, groups like, Palestinians for Justice or Jews for Peace doesn't sound like the type of groups that you got to be worried about in terms of like, revoking their charter.
Yeah, so this is something else that I've been covering throughout. This is not just at Columbia, but at schools across the country, and certainly not just Ivy League schools, certainly, where there are certain policies on the books with regards to how students gather, how students organize, how long they can stay in buildings, all sorts of provisions like that generally have not been sort of used to sort of police or manage how students gather. But they are being used much more with regards to students concerned with what's going on in Gaza. And that's been the case in minor ways, for years, but particularly in the past 3 months because of just this groundswell upswing of student activism across the country. Universities are being much more nitpicky about how they choose to use and not use certain policies. So there might be standing rules that are on the books, but they haven't been used to this extent. One example is there's been numerous sit-ins across the country at all sorts of college campuses, and a lot of students at those campuses have noted to me that sure, technically we are violating X, Y, and Z rule, but the consequences that they face are ones that have not been faced by other students who might be, for instance, burning couches after a big football game or just being rowdy or being publicly drunk, which, no shade, whatever. But these are things that are not met with such harsh consequences, whereas these students, especially ones that have done sit-ins, are facing even criminal charges brought by their own institutions that they pay to go to and learn from.
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to add, Rashid Khalidi, right, is the one of the, in the wake of, Edward Said's passing, right, he is the leading Palestinian academic in America, and he teaches at Columbia University. That is just an example of how, the author of the 100 Years' War on Palestine, which everyone should read, an example of how this tradition is like very deeply embedded, or a recent tradition within Columbia University, and the tensions there. Like, have you, in your reporting outside of just Columbia, documented and seen some of the ways that these pro-Palestinian students are being doxxed, being harassed by folks who right-wing groups like at Harvard University, where they were putting out LED screens with the pro-Palestinian students' faces and things like that? I mean, what has been that kind of what's the temperature of that right now?
Yeah. I mean, that is certainly an element that's taken place at, again, campuses across the country. Those trucks were not just limited necessarily to Harvard's campus nor Columbia's campus. There's also just sort of interpersonal threats that these students face, many of which is why some students often speak to me on background, just because they have faced threats from their campus communities. And that also has nothing to say about outlets like Canary Mission, that, as many viewers might know, is this website that collects pretty much personal information, and increasingly incredibly granular, I should say, personal information about students who express sympathies or concern for Palestine. They're framed as being pro-Hamas terrorist sympathizers, and sort of the granularity in which some of these websites get to people's personal information, even, the things related to their family and friends. It's deeply concerning. And I think one thing to your point about Professor Rashid Khalidi is he told me that, for a lot of young people, this is just a very significant moment in their lives. This is one of the worst humanitarian crises that they are getting a front seat towards. Of course, there are many, many crises around the world that America might have a hand in, but this is one in which, America has sent billions of dollars of aid to, has been sort of contributing to for decades, especially, of course, for the lifetimes of people my age. And so I think one thing that's missing from a lot of sort of media coverage and media treatment of these students is that there's no just basic premise acknowledgement that these students are coming from a place of just deep offense at an injustice that they are watching happen, as many of these activists say, in their name. And I think one thing that stuck out to me as I've talked to students across the country is that even if they purport themselves to be sort of hardened by the world, cynical, or, having tempered expectations as kind of this world can do to young people, they still have this optimism that this misery in our world is not a choice, it's not inevitable, it's not something they want to sign up for. And so to the professor's point, this moment is a moment that tests that resolve for them. So naturally, as we see these protests get increasingly larger, as they do sit-ins, even in administrators' offices, these are not coming from nowhere. They're based off of a very rational emotion that we can understand and internalize, and one that when they're not being met after they ask for transparency or just for the universities to say, hey, where are we investing? Of course, they will escalate. So I think if we observe from that generosity and empathy, I think the media would hopefully begin to treat these students a bit differently, to the point that we're not covering them days later.
It's also interesting to me, having been part of the student movement against apartheid in the mid-'80s, and maybe I just, there wasn't cable news, and I'm in college and I'm not getting the New York Times delivered to my dorm room, and there's no cable news. I don't know how much TV I watched at that time, so I didn't have necessarily I wouldn't necessarily have been exposed to the level of pushback if it existed, in terms of I don't remember anybody ever saying, why are you so interested in South Africa? It never, and I had...
Jonathan Chait wrote a piece for University of Michigan student newspaper that was kind of like that. But...
Okay, fair enough. There may have been people saying, but there was never a sense of what we had to justify an interest in this. There was arguments as to what we should do. Should we be involved in constructive engagement? And we were specifically trying to get our colleges to divest from South Africa and divestiture. That's what it was all about at that time. Take the money that we had in our endowments and pull it out of any company, in terms of, I guess it was stock holdings, any company, or maybe corporate bonds, who knows, any involvement, any companies that were involved in South Africa. And there was never, and I had this argument with I think it was the chairman of the board of our college, who was also the CEO of Pfizer, who had a lot of investment in South Africa. And there was never why are you so interested in this? Do you not like white people or something like that? That was never something I had to justify. And I had no connection to South Africa. None. And that part is, I think, a very interesting dynamic that we don't generally see. I don't remember, even when it was free Tibet, I don't remember people having to justify, why are you so interested in Tibet?
Well, I think the point is just South Africa, that wasn't the top recipient of our military aid, right? We had
even less reason, theoretically, to be invested in that.
Exactly.
And we still didn't hear any, that type of thing. So, but all right, with all that said, let's talk about this latest incident on Columbia University, because this isn't just a question of the university being sort of hostile to the protests. It's there seemed to be, at least their knee-jerk reaction is to protect people who are now arguably assaulting, allegedly, the protesters.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened.
So, as many people might already know, at this protest, there were allegedly two individuals who were sort of fading into the crowd, making themselves part of this crowd. But at some points, they were very much not. They were confronting some Jewish students who had a banner that had CU, Jews for Ceasefire, Columbia University, Jews for Ceasefire, and these individuals called them traitors, self-hating Jews, and the like. And they were calling other students, Palestinian and non-Palestinian students, terrorist sympathizers, and so on and so forth. filming them, confronting them, approaching them, just kind of harassing them throughout the protest. And these same individuals were allegedly the same ones who then sprayed these students with some, at this time, non-confirmed chemical. Students allege that they think it's some form of skunk. And for those who don't know, skunk is this chemical that's sort of notorious for very intense, severe effects. I think it was the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that wrote, I have the quote here, "Skunk is liable to cause physical harm, such as intense nausea, vomiting, and skin rashes, in addition to any injury resulting from the powerful force of the spray. Examinations by police and army medical teams in the past have also indicated that the excessive coughing caused by exposure can result in suffocation." And that's one of numerous accounts from different outlets like BBC and so forth that have described the dangers of this chemical. Students think it's some form of it. It's not confirmed yet. What I will say is, and I've seen medical records of students that have visited the hospital since, there were numerous individuals that had to go to either medical care, urgent care, the campus health center, or an off-campus hospital to get treatment for anything from nausea to staying headaches to stomach and chest pain to pain in their abdomen, all sorts of symptoms that are naturally very concerning. So we don't know the exact chemical yet. We do know that numerous students felt pretty darn bad after being exposed to it. So after this, the university's first response after, again, there were viral tweets about this. This was not some sort of mystery. The first response was, I believe, late Sunday night when the Department of Public Safety, so not from the administration itself, the Department of Public Safety sent out a very late notice on Instagram and I believe by email as well, saying that there was a troubling incident. They were working with authorities. Not much detail beyond that, a very short message. The next morning, the provost sent an email that was much more vague in general, sort of reiterating campus policy about protests, reiterating that, some of those policies include not causing bodily harm, but no more details beyond that. And then, while we were writing the story, we reached out to the university, of course, and one of the series of questions I asked was about their response, how they're navigating the fact that students, of course, feel very unsafe on campus at the moment, and along with a few other questions. And the response they gave to us was pretty much saying that the protest was an unauthorized event, and they kind of left it at that. They didn't really answer too much about other questions. And so, of course, we reported that in our story. And an hour later, within an hour later, I'm not sure the exact timestamp, the provost sent a follow-up email, finally explicitly acknowledging both the incident in more clear terms, exactly that they were working with authorities, including the NYPD, who's taking the lead on this, and that the perpetrators were banned from campus and that they were being investigated for possible hate crimes. So that was a much bigger escalation than the previous statements that both we got and that were given to the campus community. And remember, this was over 2 to 3 day span. The protest was Friday. Late Sunday night was when the Department of Public Safety issued that statement. Wow. So that's a lot of hours.
A lot of hours. And I'm unclear. Have they identified the two people who are at least accused of allegedly using this skunk spray?
Yes. So I'm waiting for the university to get back to me on officially confirming that identification. Presumably, since they were banned from campus, that would mean yes. And of course, again, this investigation is ongoing. So before we make any definitive claims on who was or was not involved, we should wait for that confirmation. And that's something, of course, I'll keep an eye on as well. But in terms of the individuals themselves, so this is actually an interesting detail. They have been allegedly banned, and I'm waiting for clarification from the university on this as well, because some students have reported, and I've heard from some sources that these students have been seen on campus. And Columbia actually does have an open campus, so it is a bit of a challenge to sort of monitor that. One thing that the university can do is sort of disable their university ID cards. But the issue, or a hair here, is just that a student has reported that one of the alleged perpetrators was seen in a lounge that you can only access with university ID. So whether or not this ban is in place or how it's being monitored is still up in the air. And of course, I'll monitor that and we'll report on if if I hear back or find any confirmation. But that's the state right now of the perpetrators.
And so at least one of them may be a Columbia student. Is that it? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
And I also heard early reports that they had some relation to the IDF, or is that just sort of like loose talk, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, it's not loose talk insofar as if these alleged perpetrators are indeed the ones, it's not loose ties, it's that they had served. There's even one CBS interview with one of the alleged perpetrators in the aftermath of the Hamas attack on October 7th, where he's, naturally, of course, very emotional about the attack and saying how he wants to go back again and sort of support the cause. So again, it is all pending on if it is confirmed that these two are the individuals, but they certainly wouldn't be loose ties.
Okay. And to be clear, just about everybody who does not have a religious exemption in Israel serves in the IDF. And so it is for an Israeli to have served in the IDF, or, some American, European, people do that.
Yes.
That does not necessarily mean there's some type of nefarious plot by the IDF to be involved in this.
Yeah.
That association is not as sort of like, that is not in any way atypical of someone who may have come from Israel and going to college here or something like that.
Definitely.
All right. Well, and so it sounds like we're on the brink of, in the next 24 hours, confirmation as to the identification of these perpetrators, and then seeing the university begin to make some type of like investigation as to, or resolve an investigation as to what they did. Yeah.
We should be getting close. And I guess one other point that I'm sure is not lost on many people watching this, but it is deeply concerning the extent to which not just pro-Palestinian students, but just Arab-appearing students, to even just allies of people in Palestine, are not being given the sort of generosity and credence that all students deserve. All students deserve a level of care and compassion that these students just do not seem to be being afforded. The fact that we've had a 6-year-old sweet Palestinian soul taken in Chicago, that we've had 3 Palestinian boys shot who are students as well, that we now have this incident, and that's only big ticket incidents. That's notwithstanding the ongoing harassment that students and allies face. It's very concerning, and it'll be very interesting to see which members of Congress begin to operate and sort of support that basic premise that every young person in this country deserves to feel safe.
Prem Thakker, politics reporter at The Intercept. We'll put a link to your work over at The Intercept and these pieces in particular. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Thank you.
All right, you too. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're hoping to reach David Bedar. He is a history teacher and a member of the Newton Teachers Association. They're on strike. He's walking the picket line right now. I don't know what the weather's like outside of Boston, but we'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. We are now joined via Zoom with David Bedar. He is a history teacher and a member of the Newton Teachers Association. He's out in front of what school are you out in front of, David?
So I'm right now in front of the Newton Education Center, along with a whole lot of people.
Wow, that is a lot of teachers.
Educators, community members, students, alumni. It's quite the scene. There are hundreds and hundreds of people here.
How many teachers are, who exactly is on strike right now?
We, educators of the Newton Teachers Association, about just under 2,000 of us.
And
the school district that serves about 12,000 students.
And what are the, why have you folks walked out on strike?
That's a bit loud here. Why? So our main priorities. Yeah. So this is, I've lost track of the days at this point. We voted to authorize Thursday night, as it always is. It's a absolute last resort. Nobody, despite the energy, people screaming in my ear right now, despite this, nobody, wanted to have to do this in the first place. It shouldn't have been necessary. We authorized the strike vote last Thursday. And the reason for that really is our mayor here in Newton, Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller, has systematically, chronically underfunded the schools. Some of us might say actively defunded the schools. And is, at this point, threatening layoffs if there's going to be a settled contract. Or I can't do that the way that we love our educators, but I can't do that. Otherwise, that's going to result in layoffs. Which we feel is inaccurate, to say the least. He's already been laying off people. We've cut almost 60 positions the last 2 years. There's a torrent of misinformation, of, call it what it is, propaganda coming out of the mayor's office and school committees here. And we are fighting for things that are eminently reasonable. We're looking for our Unit 3 members, so behavioral therapists, instructional aides. We're looking for them to be paid a living wage. Folks at the bottom, sorry, loud cheers we can't hear. I'm happy to take out the headphones in a sec if you want to hear the crowd. Ayanna Presley, representative. Congresswoman is going to be speaking, as I understand it today. A bunch of student speakers we just had, and I can't even hear who's speaking right now. I think an educator. So as far as the main priorities, we are, we're looking for, living wage. That's what I started to tell you, about $27,000 starting salary is not going to cut it. This is an affluent city. This community really deeply values education, and the community's on our side, as evidenced, I think pretty clearly. Some of the folks wearing these blue hats are not educators. They're supportive community members, parents. So we're looking for Unit C, living wage. We're looking for mental health support for our students. In particular, looking for social workers to be put at all the elementary schools in Newton. We are looking for reasonable cost of living adjustments that are, going to keep us competitive and able to attract and retain really top-notch educators, along with being at least consistent with, sorry, big cheers again. Also, just to keep pace or try to keep pace with inflation. We're not asking, 8%. We're asking for something reasonable. What else can I tell you? We are looking for a humane, modern, not archaic and sort of patriarchal definition of family leave. So we're looking to, they still have language in there that is from the dark ages and also not consistent with what's law for folks in the private sector as mandated by the state of Massachusetts. We're asking for the equivalent. We're looking for, 12 weeks. We're looking for 60 days of paid parental leave. None of this language about primary parents. That's, we think that's ridiculous. And really, really out of date. And those are just, I would say, 4 or so of the major proposals that are not only on the table, but they have been on the table. They've been our priorities for now 16 months. We've been, bargaining or trying to bargain since October of 2022.
Wow.
So the fact that even just now, the fact that we're just now getting them to talk about things on the margins and not actually dig into the meat of anything tells us that, you know, they're not serious about actually negotiating. What they're trying to do, it seems pretty apparent to most people in the community here, is, you know, wait us out, war of attrition, try to, you know, starve our union with awful fines, the likes of which the state of Massachusetts has never seen before. And, you know, we've been pretty consistent about that. You know, good luck. It's not going to work. There's absolutely zero chance.
Keep your headphones in because that's doing a good job. We can't really, it doesn't sound too loud to us. We can obviously see everybody behind there. There's a lot of support from the community.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I'll try to give you a sense.
Years ago, I spoke to Barbara Maglione, who was a former head of the Massachusetts Teachers Union. I don't know if it was the same union as of which you're local, but there was at that time like a big push to sort of push for social justice unionism. And I wonder if in the course of those 19 months building up, do you have a sense as to how much the union began to reach out to the community to drive that kind of support that we're seeing from all the members of the community there?
Yeah, sorry. So the question was, when did the sort of mobilization start taking place?
I guess the question is like, you know, what was the union doing to get such support from the community in the buildup to going on strike?
Sure. Sorry, it's hard to hear on my end. So, yeah, a variety of things. One of the big ones that I and several other folks were involved with was kind of joining with some of the Newton parents. We sort of very organically, grassroots, formed what is now called the Parent Educator Collaborative. Some people call it the PEC, the PEC. I thought it was going to be PEC. People call it the PEC. But it's a collaborative that is really a pretty awesome model, and I have friends, you know, educators in other districts that want to apply this to their districts. You know, hopefully not for this situation, because hopefully, you know, all my friends can avoid this where they teach and have, you know, city leadership that is more competent, I guess, than ours currently. But people with the instruments here are quite loud. But you know, so that was a major thing, was working with parents locally. We have been very transparent throughout the process, you know, laying out, look, this is what we're looking for. This is what our bargaining proposals have been, continue to be. Give you a quick sense. That was a big moment there. Attempt to multitask here.
You're doing great.
You know, we've actively solicited parent support, as well as, I wonder if this is Diana Presley. Somebody's getting a really big ovation here. Yeah, as I said, we've been very transparent, publishing, you know, our priorities. Just this past weekend, you know, people are asking, well, so where are the differences? What are the actual discrepancies in terms of the dollar amount? So we published all that stuff. You know, it's been very, very open, very clear. We've had silent observers. I did it once myself the other day to get a sense of how it was in the you know, in the room. Doesn't seem like, again, there's particularly a lot of goodwill or desire to take this seriously on the other side. But yeah, as far as mobilization, yeah, thank you. Likewise. You know, some of the major things that we've been really fortunate to have happen are that our students, alumni, parents, you know, are kind of operating in their own grassroots ways, but also getting in touch with us, you know, not so much. So there's a group of current students that we're speaking today that are doing it independently, because obviously we're not really, you know, talking directly to our current students, although I'm seeing a lot of mine from this year out here and saying hi. But, you know, there's an extensive network of alumni that care passionately about these issues and are very supportive of their educators and all the folks that help them get to where they are now.
How many years have you been teaching?
I'm just going to move slightly so I'm not distracting from the speech there.
Sure.
People are trying to listen in. So this is my 17th year at Newton North High School. Teach history, including, and I was just about to start this in my U.S. history classes, the labor movement. So, we had just started an AP U.S. history, I think, that Thursday before we took the strike vote, Thursday night. Started the Gilded Age. It said, I was very upfront with my students, just saying, like, this is going to be a very instructive time for you. Pay attention. You're going to get the historical context from me in class, and I hope that's, tomorrow. But whenever it is soon, we hope that you'll be able to place this in the larger context. Statewide, Massachusetts, nationally, and in terms of the history of this nation, because teacher strikes are illegal in Massachusetts. And I said, well, I can teach you factually about the origins of that. Let's talk about the Boston police strike of 1919, and we can dig into historical context. So I look forward to being able to do that when we're back.
Did you say that teacher strikes are illegal or are legal?
They're illegal. We are actively breaking the law right now. We are engaged in an act of civil disobedience, and we're getting fined exorbitant sums that will have no impact other than making us more resolute, other than making us stronger.
And so I guess you answered my question about resolution. What can folks do who are in the community and even outside the community to support you guys?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for asking. I mean, if folks can go to see our there's a link tree that we have up on newteach.org is the website for our association. Again, it's the Newton Teachers Association. It's newteach.org. There's donation links. There's all sorts of information up there. Like I said, kind of a full bargaining history. Get it all out in the open. Look, this is what we're looking for. Nobody's trying to hide it. It's kind of common sense, really reasonable proposals that are going to be good for kids and good for educators and be able to sustain the school district long term. This is a place that, really values education deeply. All the community wants us to, sort of put the money behind that does exist, contrary to what the mayor would have people believe in her active, disinformation campaign. I encourage people to go look for themselves. Look at the Newton Public Schools, social media presence as well. People can judge for themselves, draw your own conclusions. I would argue it's being weaponized right now, the propaganda machine, against their own teachers. They're maligning us for trying to do right by our students and, get them active support. Make sure that they're safe. Make sure that, actual hours worked by education support professionals match up to what they're getting paid for. That's not, crazy stuff there. They work with our most vulnerable students, some of the most hardworking people in the district. Again, $27,000 a year.
Newton's expensive.
All right.
Newton's expensive. I know that.
It sure is. It sure is.
All right. Well,
most of us can't afford to live here.
We will. Are you guys going to be on the picket lines at the different schools over the next coming days? Is that the plan?
We have been. The question of whether that will continue, to a large degree, I hope not, because I hope that people will apply enough pressure on the mayor and she will do the right thing and fully fund the schools. But we have been, I can tell you that, and we will be tomorrow if she does not. And every day going forward, we're at the individual schools. Some schools have kind of joined together because Newton's pretty big, pretty spread out. We have 20-something, schools, all elementary schools and 4 middle schools and 2 high schools. I teach in Newton North, about 2,000 kids. Similar, I believe, in Newton South. And sorry, another big round of applause here. So, some of us have kind of joined forces, like these 3 schools at a certain point in the picket lines. But we've had, like I said, massive support here every day. Parents bringing, food, hot chocolate, coffee. It's really wonderful to see. There's a lot of energy and empowerment, but I just want to be clear that it's not, it's not a party. Like, we're pretty appalled at the behavior of the mayor and the school committee. They have rejected every single one of our proposals. For me, that's not negotiation. So we'll be here if we have to be, but hopefully it won't be lasting much longer. They just need to step up and do the right thing. Leaders are elected to lead, so time to lead.
David Bedar, history teacher, member of the Newton Teachers Association. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. We'll put links to newteach.org and the resources link tree that you have there. And good luck. And we will hopefully we can follow up with you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks. That is free half of the program today. We'll put all those links in the podcast and YouTube description. If you're driving by, honk your horns. If you have the opportunity to bring people pizza on the line, that definitely helps.
I think a very relevant piece of information that he said, how important the alumni and community support has been in that. Like that, I think kind of gives something to all of us to maybe check in on what your school's doing.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, just remember, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half. And you help this show survive and thrive. It really is our members that make this show possible. So if you listen to the program, watch the program once or twice a week, help us out. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Justcoffee.coop. PAX 3757. I live a short ways west of Newton, where it's a bit cheaper to live. So you get further away from Boston, it's just a little bit less expensive. And I make considerably more than the quoted $27,000 per year. Buying a house is still a pipe dream. Housing costs and general cost of living in this area, paying that low is unbelievable, setting aside the importance of the jobs these teachers and staff are doing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's nuts. It's nuts. Emma, ESVN.
Yeah, on ESVN, we went into the divisional round. We spoke about the problems with the Buffalo Bills, the scare that the 49ers had, the Ravens and Lions advancing, youtube.com/ESVN show. Tomorrow we'll give our picks against the spread. It's getting kind of close.
Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, Left Reckoning last night. We talked with Seamus Malafixali about the Houthis, and in the post game we talked about Jimmy Dore's new ad partner. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he talked to some interesting fellas and
crypto,
silver.
Silver.
So,
you're kidding.
A step down from gold.
Oh my God.
So maybe,
silver. That is really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
We used to mock the gold bugs.
I know.
What about the silver? I mean, he's kind of wellnessy now, right? Because he's anti-vax, so he could do those silver kind of droplets.
Oh, the colloidal?
Right? The
it's not
colloidal
colloidal silver. It's funny. I mean, I'll put the clip in samples. We'll put it in the post game here, but or in the fun half here. But yeah, he's
how does he justify silver? I mean, silver doesn't really move that much.
I had a lunch with this guy, and he's like, if you put a lot of money in silver, and a good question for Jimmy would be, the arrangement you came to talk about this on your program, was that contract in silver or was that in U.S. dollars?
I mean, the amazing thing about silver, I will say, is that it really is, I guess, fairly stable. I mean, during COVID, or I guess it popped up. It popped up, I guess, in 2020. So that's, when everybody thought like, oh my God, the world's going to end. Let's see what we got here. It was high and then it was really low, for a long time. It was high back in the, back in 2012. You weren't here when, there was, somebody who was, telling me, I got to buy gold. And that was like in 2010. I can't remember but the peak for silver since 2012 was 33.60, and it was there until really 2013 when it dropped down to 20. And then it's been basically in that neighborhood, 17, high teens, until 2020. And now it's been all the way up to 27, and it's been more or less like 20, ranging from 25 from 18 to 20 to, I mean, like,
So it's a store of value, not an investment.
I mean,
I don't have enough money to invest. It's a nice problem for Jimmy to have. But he was talking about crypto last year only.
And what happened to the crypto?
Crypto's gone. I mean,
did the crypto advertisers leave?
Well, I don't know if they've left. I think it might be a off season period because you have to let the.
Okay, fun half.
Okay, sorry.
I just listened to Sam go through the price of silver.
I just find that just like
I have to go to the restroom. Can we go into the fun half, please?
Yes. Silver.
Fun half.
God.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Back.
Oh my God. I am Matt from Alberta. My favorite show this year was when Sam talked about silver for a very long time. Best of show is going to be hard choices this year already. Smooth Operator says, the friend that duped me into buying silver also then told me a year later that Q from QAnon had him fooled for that summer.
Well, wait till you see what else the guy that got Jimmy into silver is into.
Oh my God. The problem with gold bloods, silver spider, is that they're short-sighted. Sure, the economy will collapse and gold will become the dominant currency, but what happens when the gold shortcomings as currency become impossible to deny? Bimetallism. Get ahead of the curve and invest in silver.
That is thinking dialectically.
Let's see this. This was unplanned. I had no idea. This is hilarious. Is this just he just cut the ad? Oh no, he actually interviewed the guy.
Big long segment of
Receive a
rumble.com.
safe and up to $10,000 in free silver. Free silver. Wow. Why would they give you
that?
Why would they give you 10,000 in free silver? I guess maybe if you buy 100,000 at a slight markup from the normal amount price of silver.
It's weird that they seem to value dollars more than all the silver that they have just to give away with their safes.
Yeah, so Jimmy was speaking to Paul Stone, who is the chairman and CEO of Republican Metals.
Okay.
Is that different from Colonial Metals Group?
Oh, come on. That's the sort of question you would ask, Sam.
Wow, it is so amazing. Like, I don't know how you can do that. Like, look, we advertise for a bidet, and I actually think like the bidet delivers on the promise. And I don't interview. The only time I've ever interviewed a sponsor was Just Coffee to find out like how the co-op works and what they do. But there's no like, and I would interview, I think, the guys from Sunset Lake Sabaday at one point on like maybe on regenerative farming or whatnot. But this is like, what are you going to find out? How do you store your silver? Let's
I'm on the website.
information.
We can look into it after this is over.
I'll just tell people once again, give that number a call if you're thinking about your retirement. I never did until I started the show and I turned 50. I never thought about it. But you have to put your money somewhere or else the tax man takes it. Right. So if you don't put your money somewhere, it just goes right to Uncle Sam. Then Uncle Sam sends it to Ukraine. And I don't want that happening with my money.
Oh, I see.
And
so, pause it. Isn't that convenient? Now all of a sudden there's some use by the tiny fraction of money that's going to Ukraine now is the reason why this leftist is saying don't pay your taxes.
Significant larger portion of tax I was going to.
This is like a twofer. It's both a tax dodge and also a scam.
Yes. Colonial Metals Group is built of men and women who share conservative values! ! We love the conversation.
That's a real thing.
We love the conversations we get to have with you when we get your money from you. I added that part. Our mission is to focus mostly on one thing that we excel in, helping you find the courage to make a change for folks who want to head off what seems like a very difficult period of time. There's also stuff that says our goal is to lift everyone willing to let us help in a way of pleasing to the Lord.
There you go. Well, I mean, if the Lord is doing this, I mean, the Lord wouldn't rip you off.
Let us help up, and there's typos. Let us help up in a way of pleasing to the Lord. Interesting.
Okay, there you go. I mean, Seder silver. Go ahead.
If you don't put your money somewhere, it just goes right to Uncle Sam. Then Uncle Sam sends it to Ukraine. And I don't want that happening with my money. And so I started to put it into retirement funds. And these people can help you put it into something that's not associated with Wall Street, that it's not associated with a dollar that has the value.
Oh, pause it. It's not associated with Wall Street? Who owns this?
Colonial Metals Group? I mean, we can look a little bit more into it, but I mean, one of the headlines on the site is, when did Noah begin building the ark? After it started flooding or before?
Oh, I see. That's weird that they're apocalyptic and selling silver. All right, go ahead.
And these people can help you put it into something that's not associated with Wall Street, that it's not associated with a dollar that has the value 2.5%.
Give us your dollars for this.
In 1971. It's a precious metal, which makes a lot of sense. Anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
There was one quick item we covered during lunch that I thought might be helpful. I drew a square, remember, on the tablecloth.
Oh, that's right.
Top left corner of the square, folks, you would have the number 100. Bottom left corner of the square, you would have 17,000. Top right corner of the square, you would have 430,000. In the bottom right corner, you would have the number 3. If we draw a line down from the top left to the bottom right, we had a 100 penny dollar that has sunk to a value of 3 cents. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have the number 17,000, which was a median home price in 1971.
Oh.
Now, since then, we've added 40% more population. So if median home price is, let's call it 20,000 in 1971.
Is he trying
to
to
the
just
top
say
right
that
corner,
silver's a hedge against
430,000.
inflation?
That's the inflation game.
Yeah.
Technically, if we just had 40% more buyers in line for a mortgage, a $20,000 home in 1971 would be around 30,000 today.
Okay.
So another way to look at this is $1 million home today in a 3 penny dollar is a $30,000 house.
Okay.
In a 100 penny dollar.
Whatever. I mean, that is, incidentally, in 1971, the average closing price of silver was $1.54. So, I mean, I don't even know why I'm spending any time actually taking this seriously. But the value of $1.54 in today's money, let's look at this up. This is just so embarrassing. It's worth $4.23 today. So silver has popped up inflation-wise like 5 times what it should have been. I don't know what the point of that is. I guess it's keeping.
It's math, Sam. Here's.
I don't know. This is
another clip of this here from another section.
Oh my God! All right, here we go.
And there it is. That's their thing. And
you get a free safe.
We had lunch, and he explained to me about how to put your money into gold and silver, and it made a lot of sense to me. Now, I'm not telling people what to do, or I'm just giving them information. And then the information Paul gave to me was really eye-opening and very helpful and essential to what to do going forward, because, there's BRICS now. There's economic power centers that are being formed to oppose the United States that never existed before, and that affects the American dollar. And so let me bring in Paul. Paul, how are you? Great. Thanks for being here.
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
So we had a lunch about a month ago or so, and everything you said, by the way, I just met Ed Dowd. I don't know if people are familiar with him, but they probably are he was a finance guy from Wall Street. He put the numbers together. He figured out COVID and all the problems that we're having with excess deaths. And so anyway, I ran a lot of the stuff you told me past him, and he validated it. And so that was very comforting for me.
But wait, why does he have this ad sitting there the whole time? Is this just it's just an advertiser that approached him at lunch? Oh my God.
So Ed Dowd is, as Jimmy said, he is currently a founding partner with Finance Technologies. That's finance with a PH, a global macro alternative investment firm. And he's also the author of Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022.
Good luck with that.
Oh.
I wonder how many years it's going to take for people to realize that they just invested in this silver as a whatever they were hoping it was. That is unbelievable. Right now, incidentally, you can get there are online banks that'll give you 5% interest on your savings, I guess.
Yeah. I would just underline some of the things Jimmy's been saying about the IRS and how he says, you got to put it into silver or Uncle Sam's going to take it. I wonder, maybe Jimmy did take silver for this, but I imagine he probably took cash to run this sort of information.
Right.
Infomercial.
And also it was last year that he was running crypto stuff. So I think, just different investments for different things.
Sam's greased up calves. There's BRICS now. What an insightful geopolitical analysis by Jimmy.
Yeah, brand new to the scene is the BRICS.
Right. Yeah, when did that start happening? I understand now there's low cap investments too. Unbelievable. That is really, I guess, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Right? At one point, once you go past a certain point.
And it's actually anti-war to invest in silver.
Yes.
It's such a good tell too when fake liberals or now conservatives only care about their money going to Ukraine, but they don't say boo about Israel.
The term BRIC was originally developed in the context of foreign investment strategies. It was introduced in the 2001 publication Building Better Global Economic BRICS.
It's happening.
Look, there's this thing, I don't know, he told me about this Ed Dowd. He's at Wall Street and he's writing these books about COVID. He's like, there's BRICS that get your money into silver.
All right. Well, speaking of conspiracy theorists, here is Donald Trump talking at a campaign event in New Hampshire. This was just 2 days ago. And he is back on the QAnon train.
Oh, yeah.
At the very least, he encourages it in the audience.
Where we go, on we go home.
It's like the rebel yell.
Spooky. Is he just standing there?
We will.
There you go. There's
a little bit of mood for you.
Sort of QAnon.
Where we go one, we go all.
How is it still a thing? Nothing that they predicted, but I guess, you know.
If anything, that greases it, doesn't it? The fact that you can always find an excuse to keep it going despite the lack
fact
of...
that Trump is still around is proof that, like, this is all part of the plan.
It's got to be. Yeah.
It's all part of the plan.
On we go. Oh! With that much fervor.
That reminded me of like when you read about the Civil War, the yell that the Confederates did, the rebel yell.
Mhm.
Nobody like is quite sure how that sounded, and I think we actually might have just got some evidence of it there. At the
I
end
thought
of
it
that.
was Wolverines. No?
That was
Okay.
Custer.
When I hear
Custer said that about
like,
the Union guys.
it sets
that
up.
what he said?
Get them Wolverines because they're from Michigan.
Oh, really? Oh, that was also what the kids in Red Dawn yelled.
Yeah.
And they-
really?
yes.
That's what it sounds like, you know, when right-wingers think a Muslim person's going to come in and blow something up and sing Allahu Akbar, right? But with that kind of, that fanaticism. And also just want to ask, why is Trump standing there quietly as kind of
The music is basking in the popularity.
So this music, if I'm not mistaken, he plays this usually at the end of his rallies where he does this whole thing where he's like, the country is in shambles. You can't get on an airplane anymore because it's always so late and no one can help you at the airport. But apparently this music he does at the end where he does his like sort of like the country is in chaos and I need to save it for you is like QAnon related music. There's some sort of tie-in to like a video that is like integral to QAnon lore.
I just don't know what the final, like, what the new frontier for QAnon is, because I thought he was supposed to root out all the pedophiles and things like that, and the storm was coming on January 6th. But I guess
QAnon isn't about any sort of rounding up or anything. It's about the friends we make along the way.
I guess, yeah, bonding experience.
One more clip from New Hampshire as we sort of leave the primary. This is a CNN's Omar Jimenez spoke to a New Hampshire primary voter. And I don't know, this person voted Biden 2020. But I think this is an example of like why Nikki Haley's numbers were inflated and why there were inflated numbers within the New Hampshire primary. So it's really hard to assess where like Republican enthusiasm is and where they fall in this, because there were so many different weird idiosyncrasies about this primary.
But you can say this was the kitchen table set for Nikki Haley if there was going to be a state where she won.
Oh, without a doubt. But she's never going to win. It really is just a question of like what her showing tells us about the Republican Party, because this isn't the situation where people are like, well, Ted Cruz, I really like him and this and that. And there was, of course, no primaries, I think in like 2020 for Trump, or if there was, we had no one running against him as far as I remember. And it really is just a question of like, what does this tell us about enthusiasm to vote for Trump or enthusiasm to vote against Trump? Here is a New Hampshire primary voter.
Voted for Nikki Haley because I was voting against Donald Trump.
And what propelled you to get to this point?
I'm 74 years old. I've lived in a constitutional democracy all my life. I want to remain that way, and I want my grandchildren to grow up in one, not a dictatorship.
And I'm curious, over the last 2 elections, have you voted Trump in the past? Was it something where you voted for him, you trusted him, and you were disappointed?
Yes, I voted for him in 2016. I am a registered Republican, and I regretted that vote almost immediately, especially on his trip to Europe, where he insulted our allies and praised Putin.
And then in 2020, was that enough for you to change your vote to Joe Biden?
Yes, absolutely.
Why did you feel the need to cross party lines?
Because I want the world to be a safe place. I believe in a strong NATO. My father fought in World War II to defeat fascism, and I want it to remain defeated.
You know, New Hampshire is such a unique place. You all get to actually see all of the candidates come here. In some cases, I'm sure get to meet them and even hear from them directly. What impressed you most about Nikki Haley?
Well, actually, I was a pro-Chris Christie person. I lived in New Jersey for years. He was a wonderful governor.
Oh, but
pro Chris Christie. I mean,
but come on, there's a charm to this kind of northeastern.
Well, it's charming, but the problem is we can't clean anything of it because she's representative of about no people.
No. We can't clean anything of it because of the numbers. I mean, the voting percentages. Look, this is the kind of I'm sure she likes Morning Joe these days or something like that. But like, I mean, the gap. This is what's insane is that Nikki Haley only got 25%. Only 25% of the voters that voted for Nikki Haley were Republicans. Like the share of Republicans that came out, Nikki Haley got 25%. Trump got 74%. So, point being is that she is 1 in 4. Or she's not. That's actually not good math, but you know what I mean. She's a minority of the Nikki Haley voter from yesterday.
But my curiosity is with a person like this. If would this person then ultimately vote for Biden in the binary matchup again? And also another question I have is, this is a New Hampshire Republican, but I think in certain other states, this person would potentially just be a reformed now Democrat.
I think so too.
Just in the sense that, like, I have, my parents' friends who, were longtime Reaganite, that type of austere conservatism, nostalgic for a time that didn't exist type of politics, who are just de facto Democrats now.
Oh,
because they hate Trump so much that they never vote for a guy like that. They think the party is unrecognizable. So I just think it's curious. She obviously identifies, but for the most part, in terms of where she's going, you maybe call that just a Democratic
We're
vote
from
now.
Jersey.
Yeah.
It's Northeast. I mean, this is actually kind of in keeping with a long tradition. I mean, who's the governor of New Hampshire right now? It's a
Sununu.
moderate Republican, Sununu. I mean, like Mitt Romney in Massachusetts.
Charlie Baker.
Chris Christie in New Jersey. Charlie Baker.
Phil Scott in Vermont.
Yeah, this is something that like actually New England and Northeast voters are kind of Republican voters and also kind of centrist types are drawn to. So it makes sense that they would like Nikki, which is why I think you can glean some things from this, which is that she would beat Biden, I think, in the general election with the way that she appeals to independents.
And the only thing standing in her way is a Republican primary.
And the only
but that's been the dynamic.
Yeah,
that's a dynamic in many like congressional races and senatorial races, is that the vast majority of the Republican Party is completely batcrap crazy. And I mean, that's not a technical term, but there's lunacy. I mean, they do not believe in the results of the 2020 election. They 50% of them are like, I'm not so into the democracy part as much as I am about let's have a good economy. We can go on and on with just
levels.
where the general
religiosity
of the Republican voter is just so far to the right and out of step with 55% of the American public. I'll tell you, none of this would be there would be zero suspense if we had a national popular vote. There would be zero suspense on any of this. If we had proportional voting in the context of the Senate, there would be, the only suspense would be how many more senators will Democrats have than Republicans. But But we have a system that was designed, it's like sort of the next step away from the sort of like monarchy and feudalism that preceded it. And there was still this sort of like built into the system, like, well, we still have the aristocracy. Maintain, a little bit of like a little bit of weight, extra foot on that scale, as it were. And we have reformed since then to some degree. Used to be, we didn't even get to vote for our senators. Used to be there were no primaries at all. That wasn't that long ago. When I was 6, there was no primaries. It was all just chosen by the Democratic Party, and they would have maybe a couple of like popularity votes. That was it. But we still have a long way to go till we have like even like, never mind how legislators are swayed by money that's spent for or against them. Even on a like 1-to-1, my vote has the same weight as someone whose vote in Wyoming has. For a senator, or my vote has the same, weight as somebody has in a state that, I don't know, Pennsylvania. It's we got a long way to go before we get there. Left is lawn guy land. Good morning, MR crew. Did anyone happen to catch the Destiny Shapiro debate? Quite a doozy.
No.
I did not.
I ducked it.
Not Nick Fuentes. My fiance moved from Mexico in late December. We've been living together for a month and we're getting married. However, I know that I may be making the best or the worst decision in an election year where immigration, no matter the legal status, is being projected as bad for America. Do you think I effed up? Or do you think that we can survive to the adversity of the GOP, especially since we're living in Texas? Left is best. No, get married. Congratulations. Left or beret, have we had a primary that was so far in the bag before voting begins? Have we ever had? Probably not.
I haven't been able to think of something like that.
Kowalski. Emma, the Majority Report community can't afford the emotional expense losing another host. I'm sending a parachute to the Majority Report office. Just take it as a carry-on.
Jesus, wow.
I always keep a stockpile of silver on me, just in case there is, in fact, vampires or werewolves. Silver is actually less than a store of value because the value of the U.S. dollar decreases with inflation each year. So you would think that silver would be going up by like 50 to 75 cents per year if it was just a stored value. Our Burroughs Garden. I saw an interview on Breaking Points with Andrew Volinsky, a social justice advocate who has talked to the Secretary of State of New Hampshire. The Secretary of State promised that he would count all ceasefire write-in votes, but then Democratic Majority for Israel got involved, and it's less certain that it will happen. Sigmonoid. Sam, how much would someone go about knowing as much about Social Security as you do? I've read the Social Security works, but are there other sources I should read, watch, or listen to? Well, there are plenty of books. Social Security works. The chair of that, Nancy Altman, wrote a book about it. I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. And then go read the reports. And you'll learn there are 3 actual reports that are, or 3 scenarios about the future, A, B, and C. The one that we usually hear about is B. And that's usually even more conservative than reality. So, Macron Iron. Sam, can you please elaborate more on your theory as to why Russian immigrants are so pro-Israel? My girlfriend's from Russia, has been here for 10 years, technically Christian, but not religious at all. For a little more context, she hates Putin. We've been dating a few years. I'm always agreed on everything political, and then this happened. I'm in shock how she repeats all the Israeli talking points. For me, it's more than just convincing her it's not Israel's security interest to stop what they're doing, but I need to see her to see the reality of what Israel actually is, and Palestinians aren't all brainwashed terrorists. Any insight or advice, please? I love her, but Jesus, this is hard to grapple with. I have no idea. It's just something I've observed. I mean, I think there's something to folks who grew up, you had decades of the Soviet Union, and you're basically taught how to be an authoritarian in that environment. And I would imagine, even if you are, in your 20s or 30s, your parents grew up in that environment. And so I think that, it was passed on in some ways. I don't know.
I'm going to ask our guest tomorrow, Zachary Foster, specifically about it. He's a historian of Palestine, but I know he's read or spoken about before the initial Russian emigres coming over at the turn of the century, at the early 1900s, being much more nationalistic in their perspective, but also European emigres as they began, because in World War I and World War II, and again, this is my kind of summary of what I've heard from him. This was a time of rising nationalism across the board, right? And in part of what contributed to both world wars. So it was more of like how Zionism being a way to capture the energy of nationalism, and then bring and people who were militant in that tradition coming over to Israel and importing that. I don't know if that's an add-on to your theory or supports it, but that's
It makes sense to me. I don't know.
Right.
Hey, Sam, I'm a relatively new dad with 3 years old. I was wondering when you started talking to kids about your expectation for grandkids and when I should start talking to my kid about it. Thanks. I don't want my family to think I'm weak.
But you know what? Like, that clip does remind what I've said about the trans panic and things like that. There are so many parents out there that just see their children as extensions of themselves, essentially. And that boggles. I mean, it really is so disrespectful to your kids' agency and autonomy.
Yes. But it's super hard in particular not to take issue with what you perceive as your kids. Well, this is a different thing, I guess. But that relationship that you have to your kid, the worst part is seeing traits in them that you don't like in yourself.
Right.
And then you're basically somebody's holding a mirror to yourself. And then you get mad at yourself and then mad at your kid and then you punish them.
Yeah, well, that's like that's normal. That's normal stuff, as opposed to you need to extend my DNA or
sire and heir,
and also be in my vision of gender. Like, that's how those things connect.
Oh yeah, no, that's different, I guess.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's also just incredibly ignorant. And all right, but let's do this. There was a California Senate primary debate on Monday. I missed that. I don't know if it was available. I imagine it was available on YouTube. The California primary is what they call a jungle primary. In other words, it is both Democratic and Republican, and I would imagine some other parties go in, and the two winners of that primary then go to the general election. Barbara Lee is running. She is one of the top Democratic Senate candidates. The other two are Adam Schiff and Katie Porter.
And those two are ahead of the pack by a significant margin.
Are ahead of Barbara Lee as well.
And the Republican whose name escapes me.
Now, Barbara Lee...
Former Los Angeles Dodger, Steve Garvey.
Right, exactly. And he is number 2, I guess. And so it's right now in the polling, Adam Schiff, Steve Garvey, Katie Porter.
I meant top 2
Barbara
Democrats. Sorry about that.
And, but again, jungle primary, 2 people get elected. It's going to be Garvey and it's going to be Schiff if the polling holds where it is now. I don't know that it will. You will remember that Barbara Lee is the only person who voted against the authorization to go to war in the House in the wake of 9/11. Here she is calling for a ceasefire, the only one of the Democratic Senate candidates in California.
Member Lee, on October 8th, less than 24 hours after that attack, you called for an immediate ceasefire. If that happens now, if there is an immediate ceasefire, what's to stop Hamas from retaking control and launching another October 7th?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, I called for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. Israel deserves to live in peace with security, free from Hamas and all terrorist attacks. And I'm going to continue to condemn the horrific attacks of October 7th and work to make sure that whatever I can do to ensure that the administration, as it continues this war in Gaza that has killed now 25,000 people, that is counterproductive to Israel's security. The only way Israel is going to be secure is through a permanent ceasefire. The only way that is going to happen is with a political and diplomatic solution. The path to peace and to a secure Israel and a secure state for the Palestinians, with yes, I do believe we have to see the end game, and it should be a two-state solution. Killing 25,000 civilians, it's catastrophic, and it will never lead to peace for the Israelis nor the Palestinians.
Congressman Schiff, you have not called for a ceasefire. Why do you think that Congresswoman Lee is wrong?
Well, first of all, I go back to October 7th, to the brutal murder of 1,200 people. And not just murder, but rape and torture. The magnitude of that horror is still shocking to me. No country, after having been attacked by terrorists like Israel was on October 7th, no country could refuse to defend itself. It has a duty to defend itself, and I think the United States should support Israel in defending itself. We also should work with Israel to reduce the number of civilian casualties, and my heart breaks for all the Palestinians who have lost lives, all the families that have lost lives. It's not, in my view, incompatible with human nature to grieve the loss of both innocent Palestinians as well as innocent Israelis. I support a two-state solution. We have to get back to a road to a two-state solution, but Israel has to defend itself. We can't leave Hamas governing Gaza. They're still holding over 100 hostages, including Americans. I don't know how you can ask any nation to cease fire when their people are being held by a terrorist organization.
And the rebuttal to Congresswoman Lee, how do you?
Well, let me just say, first of all, I voted against the authorization to use military force right after the horrific attacks of 9/11. I voted against the Iraq authorization. I said then, and I'm saying now, it could spiral out of control. You see what's happening. It's escalating in the region. We have to make sure that our national security is also protected. And in fact, as this war escalates, as the Arab nations pull back, then what do we have? We do not have a path to Israel's security, nor do we have a path to a Palestinian state. It will spiral out of control like I said it did and would after 2001, and it did.
Congressman.
I just want to say, Katie Porter also answered at one point and keeps doing this thing saying ceasefire is not a magic word. That was her response. Get out of here. We don't, I mean...
Ceasefire is not a magic word, but it is an example of what the it's also not like some type of like taboo word that is going to bring about Jumanji is going to show up or something.
Right, you're not saying Beetlejuice 3 times.
Yeah, I mean the point is not that the United States has not been able to stop Israel's assault on Gaza. The point is that the United States has not tried to stop Israel's assault on Gaza. And
facilitating it,
and are in fact facilitating it. And ceasefire is not a magic word, but it does create pressure on the administration to stop facilitating it.
I actually thought that Barbara Lee was further down the polls, so I just want to correct myself a little bit because it was maybe earlier polling I had in my mind. Politico's most recent one, but it's still from December, has Schiff ahead by a ton. 28%, Garvey at 19, Katie Porter 17, Barbara Lee 14. The problem is that Barbara Lee and Katie Porter are cannibalizing one another.
A shame on Katie Porter.
I mean,
the logic, Barbara Lee's exactly right about the logic. I mean, particularly a shame on Katie Porter going to Israel last year and saying, "Oh, look at how LGBT friendly it is." But
gay marriage is not legal there, by the way.
Yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say about Lee, but yeah, the shifts to it.
Well, no, Barbara Lee has a track record. She's a deeply moral person on this, but unfortunately, I think her age is getting in the way with voters.
Right.
The cycle of violence is exactly right, though, because Schiff will say, well, look at what happened on October 7th. So many people, the magnitude of which I can't even really quantify yet, and Israel has to defend itself. But there's no admission that okay, what are Palestinians going to feel like when they see their entire city destroyed and 20,000 people killed? Like, they're going to want to defend themselves too. And what you have just outlined is a cycle of violence.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that there is this sort of in this response, they take it out of the realm of morality in terms of the absolute wholesale slaughter of Palestinian civilians. They take it out of the realm of morality and just try and make it a practical question. Israel must defend itself, which in and of itself is not a hugely controversial statement that a country, at least generically, has the right to defend itself. The problem is twofold. One, Israel doesn't technically have a right to defend itself against the Palestinians because they're occupying the territory. That's just from a technical standpoint in terms of international law. But as a practical matter, it has failed. Every once in a while, we go in and obliterate the Palestinians living in Gaza. This strategy has not worked. Here's a clip of the co-director of the organization Standing Together. It's an Israeli organization, Palestinians and Jews. There was an event in Tel Aviv calling for a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza. And this is Rula Daoud. She's one of the co-directors. And the point being here is that you're not going to find any type of security. There's going to be no peace until, she says it better than I would. Listen to this. I'll read it off because it's in Hebrew. An hour from here, a war is raging. They told us that it would destroy Hamas. They said it would lead to the release of the hostages. But after 103 days of war, none of that has happened. The hostages continue to die. Those who returned because of negotiations. Hamas is only getting stronger. And what's been destroyed are the lives of Gazans, of children and women and men, of innocent civilians whose homes have been destroyed, who have nothing to eat, who have no hope. And on this side of the border, tens of thousands of people from the Gaza envelope experienced a terrible massacre on the 7th of October, lost family and friends. And now they don't know when they will be able to return to their homes. How does any of this benefit any of us? In favor of the people who live here, how much more blood will be spilled before we understand that this war is destroying us? How many more people will be killed before we understand that this isn't the way to achieve security? How many more houses will be destroyed? How many more dreams will be abandoned before we understand that there will not be hope on one side of the barrier unless there's also hope on the other side? That the fate of the Israelis and Palestinians is interconnected. That it's either we all will live in peace and freedom, or none of us will. That's it. I mean, at the end of the day, that is the fact. You can put aside the moralizing. You can put aside the questions, the legal questions as to whether an occupier has a right to defend themselves, and the occupied have a right to using any means necessary, international, the niceties of international law, incidentally. But at the end of the day, if there's going to be security for anybody in the region, it has to be security for everybody in the region.
And what Matt was saying about how, to the extent, and you were paraphrasing someone else, I forget, but to the extent that there are embers in Israel that are starting to have see cracks and they're kind of carefully curated life in the way it's shown to them, right, is like they're starting to see images from the outside of what's happening in Gaza, and pressure is coming through, and also of course the grief and fear about their family members, and if they're the family members of those hostages, if that can be we can put oxygen into that and put pressure on Netanyahu from the outside and encouraging these kinds of things, that's the only way we'll get peace as well. So it's good to see that, and it seems like those protests are getting increasingly more frequent and more voluminous in Israel.
Yeah, who knows? I don't. I mean,
because there's a part of me in my reflexively where I'm like, I want to hear from Palestinians on this right now, like the people that are facing the genocide, right? But at the same time, like the way that levers of power, the only the party that can stop the genocide is Israel right now. Yep. And Netanyahu's gonna have to answer to the incentives domestically, which is scary. Well, I thought we were striking a more hopeful tone here, Matt.
Good job, Matt.
Yeah.
That's
a real thing.
Yep.
Smooth operator. So back in 2020, before I started reading, was politically engaged. My friend kind of duped me into buying $600 worth of silver coins. Oh yeah, okay.
You're playing the game called capitalism.
Yeah, honestly, it would be invest in freaking Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and that might have been a better.
Or just stocks.
We just found his receipt.
Index funds.
$23 per coin. It's worth about the same now. I'm going to get my money back.
Good idea.
Ramona, that New Hampshire voter is precisely the kind of person my dad is at this point. I'm convinced that kind of person only exists in New Hampshire. One of my friends in Dover, New Hampshire, is originally from Jersey. I don't know what town, Emma, but I know it's in the general area of Pine Barrens, and she's considers Christie to be the worst export New Jersey's ever produced.
Oh, no, I mean, he left with historically low approval ratings in New Jersey, but people have short memories, and also it's not really New Jersey driving the conversation on that, I think.
Rachel made the mistake of looking at Biden's campaign website, not even one policy proposal, no stances on the issues, just a video of empty platitudes. Plenty of opportunity to donate money or buy merch through it. I imagine they'll fill that out later, but yeah, that I think is the part of the problem.
Don't think you'll see a lot of merch out there.
Purchased?
Yeah.
Dave from Jamaica, but realistically, Trump gave conservatives everything they wanted. But I agree with you, Sam. The only way Biden can win is for Trump to shoot himself in the foot. JR in Philly. I have the bidet and the razor, and both products deliver. I drew the line at the seeds, though. New phone, who dis? Trump would never pick Nikki Haley for VP. After all, she's Nancy Pelosi. Morpheus. I've seen reports that Trump is also really mad about having to continue to spend money campaigning with all the legal bills he's currently dealing with. I wouldn't doubt
Fungible.
it. I wouldn't doubt that, actually, not just in terms of money, but also just general resources. Folks, apparently another Boeing airplane had a major malfunction. The nose of it, or the nose wheel, fell off. Do you have the headline out of Atlanta? It was a Delta flight. Atlanta's the hub.
I'm going on a Delta flight on Saturday.
Well,
Delta Boeing flight. I checked the make.
Nobody was injured.
So pray for me, people.
Nobody
please.
was injured.
How'd they land it without the wheel?
Well, no, it was on takeoff. So it was just taxiing for takeoff.
Hey, just plop. Okay.
Just plop. I don't know if it...
it's kind of an important wheel as far as plane wheels go.
I sort of feel like they're all important wheels.
I guess.
But you have the CEO of the Alaska Airlines said we had a lot of planes, MAX planes, with loose bolts. Now, think of the reasons why all these Boeing planes may have manufacturing defects.
Diversity.
You nailed it, or at least that's what Charlie Kirk thinks. Here is Charlie Kirk. And to be sure, Charlie Kirk, understand he's saying this not because he has an issue with black people, but because ostensibly Boeing manufactured planes poorly. There we go.
Corporate hiring practices.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created. This is the reality the left has created.
Look what they made. They made us be racist. I don't think I've ever even looked at who the pilot is when I've been on a plane.
I'm like, okay, I hope there's nobody accidentally sitting in my seat and I can find a place to put my bag overhead.
Exactly.
I mean, the idea that the reason why these people, when they see a black person, they say, I wonder if they're qualified, is not because of diversity initiatives and equity in hiring. The standards for airline pilots is not fungible. Not to mention that the problem is with the planes.
Yes.
We've established
and not United either. They're like doing interference for Boeing.
And why don't they do DEI like arguments about the well, first they're covering Boeing's ass because it's not about the manufacturing. For some reason, it's the pilot operating
the airlines,
the airplane, not the structural integrity of it. You know what they're also doing in the way that anti-vaxxers exploit how right-wingers,
anxiety.
The right-wingers are just fearful of everything. Like they're fearful of medicine. They're fearful of getting a shot. People are afraid of flying.
Yep, exactly.
So
this is a rich vein of anxiety to tap into.
Yeah. And like the thing how far away do you think we are of like some right winger freaking out when they see that their pilot is black and like insisting like, I'm not going to get on this plane.
Probably not. Probably like a few hours. Like the turbulence. Like the thing you should think about when you experience turbulence is that turbulence itself has never taken down a plane.
Yeah.
So comfort yourself a little bit. You shouldn't be thinking about the square jaw of the pilot. Like that is a very. I don't know. You should be thinking about how planes, even if you lose an engine once you're in like cruising altitude, aerodynamics mean they're not just going to fall out of the sky. They'll glide. Like there are things to think about besides the
biological makeup of the pilot.
If my pilot isn't at least a 7,
Also, I'd be too worried
off this flight
on this dumb line of thought. Like, you remember that John Hamm episode of 30 Rock where he's so handsome that he like gets a free pass in life?
Yes.
Like, if you saw the guy who was like the Chad, you might worry that maybe he's gotten a free pass in life. If you were this dumb enough to think like these sorts of qualifications of who's a pilot is gamed this way, and
he's a doctor who doesn't know the Heimlich maneuver.
And the real problem isn't just like a massive corporation that gets defense contracts and stuff is cutting costs and like falling apart in front of your eyes. No, it's diversity.
Meanwhile, I'm sure these people railing against DEI will talk about how Nikki Haley is a little bit too corporate for a Republican candidate. And in part, it's because she's on the board of Boeing. So on one end, they're pretending they're anti-establishment, but they're doing Boeing's
leaving that layup
dirty
right
work.
There,
right. And then on the other Republican option is also doing Boeing's dirty work. That's the Republican Party. It's just different flavors, same result.
Daredevil, why is MR so hostile to third parties? No Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, Cenk Uygur, or Andrew Yang on his guests. Well, to be fair, Marianne Williamson and Cenk Uygur are running in the Democratic Party, so they're not third parties. And Andrew Yang is, I don't think, running for anything. Horrible. Awful, horrible. it's not inconceivable that we would have Cornel West on, but we don't have, I can assure you, I haven't put an invite out for, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris to come on the podcast either.
Yeah. Marianne Williamson was on Left Reckoning last week, and it was mid.
Yeah. It's almost like they're not
It's not-
really
it's just not
like
the-
great candidates.
Here's the point. It's
Yeah.
like, but it's also just sort of like, I know all the answers that are going to be given when I ask the questions.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be fun for me to have Andrew Yang on to expose how much of an idiot he is in some of this stuff. I would admit, but like, it's not like you can't Google Marianne Williamson interview and see her on half a dozen shows, not like this one.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I have any special questions to ask her that I'm going to get a different answer that's going to be interesting. And so it's really more of a question of like, what would be the reason? And, I like Cornel West and his ideas. I mean, and if there was a book that was pegged to it, but we don't really have politicians on too much unless like there's, I guess in primaries we've had people on in the past, and we've pushed primary candidates that we think can win and push an existing seat to the left.
And who often have some sort of organizational support
But they
behind
need to have some organizational support behind it. And there needs to be like, I'm not going to essentially promote a candidate. I mean, I guess to the extent that we've had candidates on, it's almost been exclusively like ones that we want to promote, because I don't want to tell people to donate money to something that I know from the get-go is either A, definite losing race, or B, has no other value beyond that. Like, I do think that there's value to losing races and running them in certain situations, because there's certain candidacies like that can build some type of organization for the next cycle.
You apparently we missed the joke in that IM, by the way.
We did?
Daredevil says you missed the joke, and I just found the IM. The second part was, why not invite the People's Party candidate Jimmy Dore on to discuss kitchen table issues like whether a real worker would punch Emma in the face or not. So
we'll have some fun.
Let's not do IMs in two separate IMs for now on.
It was I think it was one. It's okay. It's okay.
A little bit quick on the draw.
Yeah, but I mean, we're Daredevil. You have to understand how annoyed we are about these questions, so we're gonna react right away, or at least I'm annoyed.
All right, let's go to something. Should we do? What should we do here? We got a couple.
We had additions, right? We had the. Oh, I mean, I think we should. Well, we can save that for tomorrow. I mean,
11, 12, 10.
I think but we could do the 10 or 11 is my choice.
Okay. Let's do 10, and then we'll do 11. This is one of the things that I think the Republicans are really worried about. Well, this is the thing that the Republicans are worried about, aside from some of them being worried about Donald Trump. And that is Republicans have really caught the car when it came to allowing states, and ultimately they're going to want to ban abortion on a federal level, but to allowing states essentially into having the Supreme Court essentially roll back an individual right that has been an individual right in this country for over 50 years now, or had been for 50 years almost. It's the first time I think this has ever happened in the history of the country. Not enough was made up about just that simple fact. But Republicans realize this is a problem for them, because normal people, and the country still has a majority of normal people, don't want to force women to carry pregnancies to term. They don't want to force people to have birth. Whether it's ultimately could be a healthy person, or whether that pregnancy could turn out to birth a child that's going to die within 15 minutes. like that story we were talking about out of Florida the other day. So they've got to figure out how can they deal with this, which has been like the primary agenda of the Republican Party for, aside from cutting taxes, for decades now.
Harris taking aim at Donald Trump as the abortion issue takes center stage, he hopes, in the Democrats' fight for the White House.
The previous president expressed his intentions quite clearly, and fast forward to just recently, says he's proud of what he did. He is proud that women have been deprived of fundamental freedoms to make decisions about their own body.
Here we go, running on as if it's 2022 again. Former White House press secretary, outnumbered co-host.
Pause it just in case you're watching this video way into the future. Kilmeade rolling his eyes as if it's 2022 again. The year we are 2 weeks into 2024.
Oh, here we go. Democrats running on what worked so historically well for them in 2022. And
almost
it's still
13 months ago.
As a major concern with the rest of the country. Here we go.
Oh my God. What did they do to Kylie McEnany?
Kaylee, she got, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but she got a lot of fillers.
Outnumbered co-host. You see her all over the channel. Kaylee McEnany, we need your expertise. Kaylee is a communicator. You're among the best. If Republicans now had 2 years to message.
That's a real thing.
The right to life and being pro-life in a country that is not majority pro-life. How do you do that? Hold on to your values, at the same time win elections. She's obviously doubling down on that, the vice president.
She is. I mean, it was remarkable on The View when she was given low-hanging fruit like January 6th or things you think she would take The View up on answering. She pivoted right back to abortion. She's clearly had media training. She's clearly been told, tick this box.
Pause it for 1 second. The vice president of the United States clearly has had media training.
That's a real thing.
Oh my God.
That's a real thing.
I mean, do you think she spoke on a teleprompter at one point? That's what this is, right?
Oh my God. Like, Kaylee McEnany admitting that January 6th, low-hanging fruit.
Oh, yeah.
Houston, we've got a problem. Go back a little bit and let's just, I got blown away. I didn't realize the vice president had media training. Frankly, I don't think it's the best training.
It's kind of cheating, but whatever.
Yeah, good.
She's clearly had media training. She's clearly been told, tick this box over and over and over again to get young women. And we as a party, as a pro-life party, and a country that does believe there should be some restrictions on abortion, we must emphasize we are pro-mother. Show compassion on the issue, lay out our plan to help single women who are pregnant in this country, vulnerable women. Governor Ron DeSantis started doing that in the last days of his campaign, and I thought it was a great move on his part.
But so don't get into the weeks talk. Don't talk about how many weeks, 6 or 12. Message pro-mother. And how about this? When Nikki Haley said, a lot of people backed, I wonder how you feel, when she said, why are we talking about a national ban? It's never going to get there. There is not 60 votes in the Senate that want a national ban ever.
Yeah, and Ambassador Haley was emphasizing a reality. That is a reality in the U.S. Senate.
Is that a
currently.
good answer, though?
I do think it's a good answer, paired with a pro-life message about compassion and support for women. Governor DeSantis, for instance, making child care products tax-free in Florida, maternal health care. Pairing it with that, I think is a good answer.
So it turns out.
What maternal health care? Like, this is the party that got rid of the child tax credit. I want them to answer that question. What is the support that you're going to provide for all of the people that have children against their will? What is the material support? Because I'm not really hearing much. The only thing that's unified in the Republican Party is their desire to control women's bodies. There's nothing from their end that's about actually supplementing health care for those who are forced to give birth.
Again, to be clear, the child tax credit, and we call it a tax credit, but understand it's a payment. It's not a tax deduction or anything like that. It's a payment. It's just that we don't have an apparatus in which to provide this, and so we did it through the tax code. The child tax credit was increased from $2,000 per child to $3,600 per child age 5 or younger, and $3,000 for each child through 6 through 17. It was made fully refundable in regardless of income. In other words, you get this money that's paid to you. And the other sort of like a unique thing was that it was paid on a monthly basis, not when you filed your taxes. It phased it out if you were a couple that was making $150,000 or more annually. And then when it came time to renew it in the Build Back Better, every Republican was against it, plus Joe Manchin. They are now working on an anemic sort of shadow of that in the Senate, where Democrats are pushing a child tax credit. It's coming from Ron Wyden and Smith. She's from Minnesota, right?
Yeah, he's from Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah, Jason Smith is the House Ways and Means chair and then Wyden's the Senate Finance Committee.
Oh,
chair.
okay. And Smith is doing it in the House. And they have a proposal where there would be about $30 billion over tax breaks that were essentially Trump tax breaks that were going to expire. They will keep those going for corporations, of course, in return for a more sort of like Byzantine bureaucratic version of the child tax credits that is means tested, means tested through tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. It really is too Byzantine to go through. But the bottom line is that will help about 500,000 children to get above the poverty line and help about another 3 million that are still below the poverty line. So that's helpful, but not nearly what it was. But that's the best that the Democrats can get at this point, despite the fact that the Republican Party now apparently is very concerned about single mothers.
Right, exactly.
And don't talk about weeks or bans. And the whole thing about 60 members of the Senate for a ban, I don't know who comes in after Mitch McConnell as the Senate Majority Leader, but if you think that person is going to care about about changing the filibuster under those circumstances, particularly when you look at the numbers and it looks like Republicans have the advantage in the next couple of cycles when it comes to re-election in the Senate, I think you're nuts.
We have some news. Sean Fain has endorsed Joe Biden.
There you go.
Way earlier than, well, I guess it was more of an active primary when the UAW endorsed in 2020. It was in mid to late April. I don't know. I would
nice if Joe Biden would honor their demand for a ceasefire in response.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was curious if they'd hold out for that, but
not terribly surprising.
Not surprising.
No.
Should we do 11?
Sure.
Here's Greg Gutfeld. Was he like a Maxim writer? Is that what it was?
That sounds right.
Is that where he came from? That's his pedigree. Maxim was like I don't know. It was sort of like if you didn't want to be caught with porn, but you wanted to look at hot girls and make dumb male jokes. That was sort of what Maxim was.
Yeah, I mean, as a young man in the 2000s, it seemed like the type of thing you could buy without, like, as a teenager from a gas station without like a parent buying it for you.
Yeah.
Right.
It was considered
But why not just go on the internet?
You didn't have the internet.
Well,
back
it didn't
then.
have. This is back in in the early aughts.
Yeah.
And
he was the editor of
dial-up.
Maxim.
Faster just to go to the gas station.
For 2 years, it seems like, from 2004 to 2006.
Yeah. And
so he knows all about.
let me just. I'll just read you what the Guardian said when Gutfeld left. On his arrival from U.S. magazine Stuff, Gutfeld wasted no time in overhauling the magazine and promoting to bring back some wit and humor to a men's magazine market that increasingly relied on acres of naked flesh and giveaways.
Okay.
So it's all. That's what it was.
He provided something no one wanted when they were trying to look at flesh.
Yep. And here is Greg Gutfeld, still in the same business in some ways.
You can't get ratings if you operate on the best intentions of other people. So instead of honestly asking why maybe 80 million people, 75, 80 million people might want something that you don't want, they will call them dumb, racist, misogynistic, deplorable.
Can you pause it, actually?
Because
it's funny because he just said the entire business model of Fox News out loud.
Totally.
Which is just...
And also, wait till you find out who the Republican nominee for president is going to be and the things that he's been saying.
Yeah.
about-
Roger
Or
Ailes was
Murdoch.
Murdoch and Roger Ailes were very clear. Like, you go with the audience, you go with what they want. That's why they went full Trump in the end, even though they weren't on board at the start.
And why Murdoch has always like sold sex and things like that with his reactionary shit.
maybe 80 million people, 75, 80 million people might want something that you don't want. They will call them dumb, racist, misogynistic, deplorable, because those people don't see what you see. I don't like Taylor Swift, but I can see why a billion people embrace her music. And when AOC happily psychoanalyzes groups of people, then it's an invitation to return the favor, right? If she can do it, she's saying that people who support Trump are projecting their masculine insecurity. But isn't
Pause it.
she
We should
saying
make it clear that he's analyzing what AOC said about, for some Trump stuff. Go ahead.
who support Trump are projecting their masculine insecurity? But isn't she saying that because of her own insecurities about her boyfriend's masculinity, right? She must realize how soft and buttery and feminine progressive males are. And it's hard to get horny with a snowflake. So it's why, and I think this is why she is so pro-illegal immigration. She's projecting her secret desires for young, virile men who are coming here in droves, and she's stuck with Pajama Boy, and it's driving her crazy. All these Trump supporters, men, MMA fighters, drives her nuts. And then I want to just say one last comment about Chris Matthews. He's been around a long time, so he has no excuse for having such a monumental blind spot. But surely if he was not on set and you sat him down and contemplated the nature of Trump's popularity, he would get it. But if he got it, then he would never be invited back to those shows.
What?
I don't think he's helping us beat the insecure men charges.
Yeah, that's the thing is that's the kind of guy I want, right? That's the kind of guy that I want. Greg Gutfeld's a screeching little goblin who wants to, who has seemingly no sensitivity to other people.
There's a real sort of like incel-y type of vibe to his sort of like fetishizing as to what. I mean, this is...
Who thinks about AOC's boyfriend like that?
How does he know what kind of man he is?
Well, but
who sexualizes the border like that?
This is his fantasy.
Yeah.
This is his fantasy that all women want, like a strong, strapping, masculine...
Does he think of himself?
And that they are repressed.
Not necessarily. That was probably his complaint for many years. And then I don't know if he thinks of himself that way. It's sort of fascinating. He doesn't seem to fit anywhere into the scenarios he's talking about.
But neither does Tim Pool, and he says manosphere stuff all the time.
And ostensibly that someone like AOC in this parameters he's drawing is not happy with her fiance and is actually extremely sexually repressed.
Right.
And just bursting at the seams to fill out some fantasy that Gutfeld is carrying out about like a buff fighting age male coursing over the border to ravage her,
that's the thing is also like you got to understand how old their audience
sick.
is. You said it once that there's just sometimes there's this cohort of old men watching like my daughter doesn't get it
100%,
and there's a little bit of that. There's of course sexual obsession with AOC on the right, which thankfully for her has died down slightly versus the fever pitch it was at after she just got elected. But yeah, I mean, it is their fantasy, but the reality is that younger women, 35 and younger, everybody is trending much more progressive and liberal than other generations. I mean, that's always the case, but it's quite high at this point, and it's also because people our age are experimenting with their sexuality in ways that guy can't even understand, where it's like people are pansexual, bisexual. They might be interested in a trans man as well, because our generation right now is undergoing this kind of shift where many people, not everybody, but many are saying like, maybe my sexual attraction can be more about the person than it can be about the
genitals,
the genitals involved here. And so like the reality for for the old men watching this is that, you know, the thumping, chest beating man that doesn't consider other people's feelings, it is a dying breed. It is a dying breed in terms of what people are actually interested in when you're younger and more leftist. So like, I don't know. I mean, that's, I think.
Like the pilots.
Yeah, right.
With the square jaws and the right stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think that psychoanalysis, that's not, and especially like broad psychoanalysis of your political victims, I don't think it's like the best sort of genre of political analysis, but AOC's might be onto something, because if you look at like just the thing we played with Joe Rogan the other day, which is that he's talking about, okay, I'm worried about if Joe Biden wins again, Antifa is going to start doing violence, and it's going to be around trans people and all this stuff you're seeing in the algorithm. And it's like, y'all are extremely insecure about this. The biggest piece of political media you've put out is Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary.
Yeah. They're obsessed with putting borders around what defines gender, where I think younger people are saying, what borders, I mean, I don't want to limit myself. We're going to change this kind of construction.
What's also amazing, and I can tell you that, you know, everything that we see in terms of right-wing media is a descendant of Rush Limbaugh, who for decades said liberalism, Democrats, is a mental disease. And he would say this. It was like one of the linchpins of his political rhetoric, and it's all been adopted and filtered through to all these people. But Lila Rose on the Lydia Rose on our IM says, we're almost 8 years from the deplorable thing, and they're still mad about it. And the idea that they talk about snowflakes.
Yeah.
Like, this is like Greg Gutfeld, dude. It's the same. That's the incel quality, right? Which is like, there's this deep, deep insecurity and a deep, deep, sensitivity. And then this weird projection onto and it's projection. It is Greg Gutfeld. He is worried that women all are interested in these chads.
Or that they're not all interested.
No, he's worried that they are. And he's worried that he has to live in that world because he's worried that he's not that.
Well, here's then the other piece. It's like, I've been performing in this way and chasing this ideal my entire life. What else would it be for? It's all slipping away.
Well, now he makes it up with his TV show. So that's how
he has money for that.
Yeah.
I say this sometimes, but like, do you guys remember that clip with Barry Weiss and Brian Stelter where she was like, these are all the examples of a world that has gone mad or whatever? Like,
no.
This was like a big thing. Like, Rogan thought this was an amazing clip. Like, when I watch something like this, where I know this is one of the most highly rated television shows watched in the country, I mean, if I heard somebody saying this next to me on like the street, I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and this is what is being beamed into the brains of like the millions of people. This is the psychotic stuff.
Oh,
not
yeah.
Not like, you know, Chris Matthews saying Trump voters are crazy. That's relatively anodyne MSNBC pablum. This guy is literally on national television making a fantasy about AOC and her fiance.
It's super creepy.
It's a funny dynamic too, because his show's pretty popular because, you know, liberals split among the other late night hosts, so his is number one. But I think it was the Guys podcast with Chris James and Murder Brian. They're talking about how his studio audience has no idea who it is. It's all tourists who couldn't get into any of the other shows for their live thing. And so he's making all these like jokes that you need to be a conservative to follow, and the crowd just doesn't have any idea what he's talking about.
I would love to park myself outside of like the Rockefeller Center tree, which is not far from the News Corp building, and see if there's actually Fox producers coming out and trying to just drag people in. Because they do that for the other late night shows, but this one, it's like there's no fan base that's trying to wait in line for tickets. For
You're not traveling here to
go to
Gutfeld,
right.
All right, we've run out of time, folks.
Sorry.
We got a lot of stuff to do. You guys got a lot of stuff for tomorrow.
Yeah. I want to say, too, that the ICJ has announced that they will provide their ruling on the basically injunction for Israel on Friday. It says 1 p.m. I'm trying to determine still what time zone they mean. But either way,
and
this is a hugely consequential. I hope they do the right thing.
We are scheduled. We'll see. We could talk about that, right? To have Ofer
Kassif.
Thank you. Member of the Israeli Knesset on. People really complain we don't have third-party guests on.
But he's a member of the furthest left really like party in the Knesset, and he is a Jewish Israeli man. I believe he's a Jewish Israeli man. Yes, and he is currently being undergone. The rest of the Knesset
basically
is impeaching him because he's joined South Africa's case, saying that it is a genocide.
Hopefully, we'll hear from him then. I hope I don't know with this new announcement whether that'll be the case, but we'll see. All right, we got a couple of IMs to read, and then we're getting out of here. Chris Burdick, I love how badly Dean Phillips is being dragged for losing a primary where his was the only name on the ballot. He may be our Burgum.
Yeah.
A friend of mine on social media posted a photo of herself at Auschwitz with Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro. She said, Musk comes across as really good. I do not want to know her thoughts on Shapiro. Your merch needs to include an MR barf bag for occasions like this.
Let's bring those back tomorrow for Binder. Yeah.
Iowa Ryan, you should interview Rob Sand, Iowa auditor. It would be a great conversation. Make a note of that. I don't know who that is. PAX 3757. Okay, we read that one already. Macron Iron. Sam, can you please elaborate more? Oh, my girlfriend's from Russia. Been here. I read that one too already. What the heck is going on here? Real left supremacists. I imagine Charlie Kirk saw the guy from Catch Me If You Can and said, he looks like a real good pilot.
That's so funny.
Gangster King. Hi, MR Crew. It was reported last week that U.S. citizen Gonzalo Lira has died in a Ukrainian prison where he was being held for publicly criticizing the Zelensky regime on YouTube. And there's reports that he was tortured and denied medical treatment. Gonzalo Lira's family had pled with the Biden administration to arrange for his release, but they were totally ignored. Out of curiosity, has your feelings on this war changed at all since February 2022? I no longer see any Ukrainian flags in my very blue liberal neighborhood anymore. Is it finally time for U.S. hegemony to take the L on this one? I still contend more or less the same thing, that it is the Ukrainians to make this decision. I don't know about that story about the U.S. citizen dying in a Ukrainian prison. I've not heard about that. But I still contend that it's the Ukrainian decision as to what they're going to do. And I think that in the event that they're trying to fight their way to a stronger negotiating position, which I think has always been the case, I think we should support that if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Jewish anti-fascist. Did you see the clip of the young woman testifying in Burlington lets out the biggest Freudian slip in the world? She was trying to call anti-Zionist Jews anti-Semitic. Oh, yeah. We have that. Yeah. Let's just play it really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, but don't do the, do one drop of the music and then that's it. Yeah. Can't afford to do the music at the end.
Yeah, someone put
Here's that
obviously.
clip. This is, she was testifying at the Burlington City Council, and she made a slip that she was saying that it's inappropriate for people to reference the Holocaust in regards to what's going on in Gaza.
And my understanding was the person who did reference it was a descendant of Holocaust survivors. So.
And I would like to use the rest of my time to say how appalled I am that people are bringing up the Holocaust. Do not use other genocides to describe this one. I have been...
There you go. Accidentally let the cat out of the bag.
How old is that
It's not her
girl?
fault. It's a microcosm of the entire position that that Zionists have to take, frankly.
I mean, that's revealing.
Hogtown frown. Silver bullion is taxed on the capital gains, though. Like, unless you're planning on ever converting it back into some real currency, you're going to get taxed on it eventually. Yeah,
Get Ed down on the phone.
I'm not sure what the tax dodge is there.
Your whole impression's becoming something else entirely.
Marblehead Marxist. Watching Emma get increasingly distressed as you two waxed on about precious metals and Jimmy Dore was the funniest thing I'll see all week.
It's hard for me to remember a topic I've cared less about that we've discussed.
Like us here in the lines.
Winnipeg Craig, regarding the Jimmy Silver advice, I feel like it needs to be clarified. Buying silver won't reduce your tax obligation anyway. You would have been taxed on your income before buying it, and if you sold the silver in the future and did make money, and it would be less growth than the S&P 500 index fund, the profits would still be taxable. Yeah. I don't know what the tax part was really about, unless they have some type of like weird tax dodge scheme.
Ed explained it to me over lunch.
I took that, he's getting paid in kind, and so it's his tax dodge, not yours. Have you read my email? I drew a circle and drew a line through it, and that signifies how much money I'm talking from you if you're dumb enough to invest through us. A Square. Sam, must be another plan with Haley staying until South Carolina or just the grift. Emma, such a great show last Friday and with Francesca. Sorry to miss that show in California. And yes, big girls do cry in solidarity with Palestinians. You comment about how the chemistry of your brain has been so altered, keeps playing in my head. True for so many.
Oh, thanks.
I think it's possible that Haley's donors are thinking this is going to hurt Trump in the general election. But we'll see. If she makes it to Super Tuesday, it really seems like she's just there to piss off Trump.
Or in case he dies.
I gotta say though, if I'm a Republican, I don't want it like the Fox and Friends folks were anxious for it to get to be just Biden versus Trump, but I don't think that's good for Trump.
I agree.
I think it's good to have it more diffuse than that.
I agree, but I think probably there is also a feeling that you don't want the mainstream media to get bored with the
and then something
election.
happens. Yeah.
And so if I was, I had the Coke money essentially that Nikki Haley has, it's not inconceivable to me that they're like, if we can help Trump lose in 2024, it really opens the door for us and our agenda in 2028. I don't think that's actually the case. I think that they would be deluded to think that. And I have no idea if this is just completely total speculation on my part. I don't think Nikki Haley thinks she's going to get a job in the Trump administration. And so there may be value to her, or she may not feel like there's a price to alienating Trump world at this point. But I guess we'll see if she actually participates in the South Carolina primary. I would imagine she'll hang in there until, the last dollar is gone. We'll see. Scornbread just had a town hall meeting at work where they brought up the Supreme Court Chevron doctrine and how the CFPB regulatory body is bad from both is my bosses. I work in a bank, by the way. Oy. All right, two more. Amish commie. My parents and I are Soviet immigrants. They voted Democrat in every election after becoming citizens, but they are very conservative and often racist views on a host of issues, racist views. They are diehard Israel defenders. They grew up and raised me in an authoritarian way. This is something I'm trying to unlearn from my own parenting. It's freaking hard. And the final I am of the day. Jonathan Armstead. Sam, you're tied up there as an interviewer with my hero, Bill Moyers. You both do great interviews on books and public policy. But Bill had a rule on his PBS show that he didn't interview politicians. His argument was that he always wanted people who revealed things about the world, and politicians had a way of speaking that concealed things. That reasoning always stuck with me and was a big reason I don't want to see Andrew Yang on MR. And apologies to Daredevil. I didn't know his I am was a joke until after I hit send. I didn't see what you wrote there after that. But, I would put Andrew Yang on the show because I would go at him in a way that I wouldn't see him gone at from different shows, frankly. The rest, of these politicians, unless there's something interesting that they're saying that I haven't heard before or that you couldn't hear, I just don't know what the value is. But Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. Emma here tomorrow. See you on Friday. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know